Okay, all right, just let us know if you need a break.
Stu, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Hold on, we can't hear you.
Okay, I'm talking now. Looks audio's good at my end. I'm not muted.
I don't think we can hear you.
I'll try again. Is
Hold
that
on
better?
1 second. Try that now.
Okay, how's that? Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Okay,
Yep, we
good.
got you. We got you. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Today is July 27th, 2026. This is the second evening in our Rockwell LLC hearings. Before we begin tonight, I just want to remind everyone to please silence your cell phones and try to minimize background noise, as it makes it very hard to complete a accurate record and for us to hear everyone up here. We will be breaking around 8 o'clock for a few moments. If anyone needs a restroom, they are down the hall on the side of the room. I'll also remind you that this hearing is being live streamed on the Township's YouTube channel and also recorded. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Freed, our solicitor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So couple preliminary matters. We have two new requests for party status. We have a request from Susan and John Lager. Could you please come up and just give your address and how close you are to the property in question?
Yes, thank you. 105 Silver Fox Lane, Chester Springs, and we're one of the properties that actually butts the development. We share a property line.
Mr. Calgreco, any objection? Okay, you'll have party status.
Thank you.
And then we also have Lynn May.
I live at 352 Harshaw Drive in Chester Springs, and we abut the property. It's too close.
All right, any objection? All right, you'll have party status. So with that, we ended the last hearing with testimony from the natatorium people. I believe there were some follow-up questions that the board had with regard to the natatorium. So with that, and I know Mr. Isaacs was kind enough to make himself available virtually. Thank you. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board.
Sure. Thank you. I don't know if anyone else has questions, but I'll begin. Mr. Isaac, thank you for joining us on Zoom. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Thank you.
Okay. So I was just curious, given your expertise and experience in working with feasibility studies and several other natatorium facilities throughout the country, I was curious if you could share a little bit of your experience, whether they are sited in generally residential areas with density or other types of surrounding uses.
Good question. And obviously, each case is a little bit different. But in many cases, they are sited in residential areas or abutting residential areas. Very seldom are they outside town or outside residential areas. When most of these comprehensive multi-purpose aquatic centers are built, and they have significant components for community programming, school use, they are situated where they can support and service the immediate neighborhood as well as the school districts and be near schools. So that necessarily really finds themselves leaning toward being located in or close to residential areas. So this is actually looking at the whole site, particularly with its location on the proposed site, backing up to the turnpike, things. This facility is actually further from a lot of the higher residential density than many of these large comprehensive aquatic centers that we see.
Thank you. And I know that we had touched on this a little bit last week in relation to where the natatorium is currently located within this specific parcel. Do you have an opinion on where the best place site-wide would be for the natatorium?
From the aquatic center standpoint, really do not. I mean, it's a small part of a very large development. And we really deferred, at least from, as we assess the implications for the aquatic center, we really deferred to Rockwell Development and their master planning of the site. If anything, we think this is, it minimizes the impact on the entrance into the rest of the development. We've built enough parking so that we're not going to have overflow parking on the open spaces within the development. And, you know, up against kind of in that corner, that wedge at the bottom of the map near the turnpike, I think is a pretty good place for this, with a minimum impact on the overall residential community on the other sides abutting the development.
Does the board have any other questions?
I don't.
And I don't know if the township staff had any, no. Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to ask, and I'll note that I think Mr. Isaacs only has until about 6:30. So if I know everyone with party status had an opportunity to ask questions at the last part of the hearing, are there any follow-up questions that anybody has with regard to the natatorium? Yes. So Mr. McLaughlin?
How much is this aquatic center going to cost to build?
That's a good question. We have projected very rough order of magnitude costing, which has probably a 15% buffer in there. We've built in contingencies because, again, it's difficult to cost before we have really the detailed design drawings. We would anticipate, in fact, I've got some of the initial cost estimates right here, if you'll give me a moment to look this up. We are looking at projected out to 2028, which is a kind of a realistic target as to when construction would begin. We're looking at approximately $73.5 million. Again, very rough initially. There's a lot of contingency built into that. There's significant inflation built into that. You know, and again, that's $2028.
Right. And how much money has Phil Aquatics raised for this construction of this facility?
I would defer to the president of the board on that to talk about that, Mike Morgan. I know he was a witness in the Thursday meeting. Can you address that, Mike, or I could address it if you're not?
No, while we're taking that break, I'll just remind all the witnesses that they were sworn at the last hearing and they continue to be sworn.
It's green now. Okay, it's working. Our initial fundraising to do with the work that we're doing for the due diligence to get where we are today, we've raised roughly about $500,000. We have not done our capital campaign, which is what we have engaged another consulting firm, Dunleavy and Associates, Philadelphia area based, Montgomery County. And basically we need the green light. We've been holding off since we met Rockwell and worked through this since November of 2024. Hopeful, prayerful strategies to try to get to this point that we can do the capital campaign and move forward with it. Then it would be a combined effort of individual, family, and corporate contributions, and foundations and grants to get that to maybe some government funding. We know there's RACP funding from Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, $5 million designated for an aquatic center in Chester County to get to the number that we need to get to build the aquatic center. But we want to get the green light to plant the flag and rally around it here in hopefully Uwchlan Township in Chester County.
And if I could add something to that, Mike, that sounds like a daunting number. We have worked with several aquatic projects of this nature that have successfully raised that kind of private funding and that scope of funding. So this is not, although it sounds a lot of sticker shock, this is not an unrealistic expectations of what could be achieved.
What's the demarcation between Rockwell and this parcel? Is this parcel going to be a standalone, separate tax parcel? When do you take deed of it? When do you start paying taxes on it? What is Rockwell planning to do as far as infrastructure while it sits empty till they raise $75 million?
So our agreement, this is Greg Lingo, our agreement with Phil Aquatics is that we would deliver them a padded site, which essentially is utilities run to it and graded.
Subgrade?
And then we would, that's what we would be transferring that title. It would be its own subdivided lot.
And you wouldn't do that until you had them, until they had all of their funds and permits before you would even subgrade that, correct?
No, they'll be working concurrently on both their funding and permitting and design while we're doing site work.
Right. That's what you say. So, and this is a separate tax parcel.
It will be.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, hi, I was here
Just
Thursday.
state your name.
Oh, sorry. Susan Widener.
Thank you.
I was here Thursday night and you stated that the Lionville YMCA was about 80,000 square feet. Is that correct?
That was off the top of my head. We had done that analysis, boy, probably a year ago, and I didn't have the exact numbers at my fingertips.
Okay, well, according to my research, the Lionville YMCA is 23,000 square feet. So
Ooh,
you're
that's
proposing
surprising.
something, yeah, you're proposing something 3 times as large as the Lionville YMCA. I have one other question for you. You said you're familiar with our area. I was wondering, can you name the 2 developments that are directly across, the 2 residential developments off of 113 that would be directly across from the natatorium? Can you name those 2 residential developments on 113?
No, I cannot name them, but I have driven through them. I have driven all around that area with the help of locals giving me a good tour of the area. So I was familiar with the types of housing, the access where they butt up against the same access roads and main roads surrounding that, but I could not name those developments.
Okay, well, just for your information, they're called Lion Gate and Pickering Point.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Do you have party status? Okay, so this is now the second hearing. We'll have an opportunity for party status after we break at 8 o'clock, and then we can take up new parties. All right. Any redirect?
No.
Okay.
Does the township have any clarification on the YMCA? Just curious with their familiarity.
Yes, the Lionville YMCA is actually 74,040 square feet.
Thank you. That's consistent with many of the YMCA's in the region.
Excuse me, but that is not what the research shows. Chad.
Can we, that's,
Excuse me.
no, I'm not asking you to come up. That's fine. We don't need a rebuttal. You'll have an opportunity to present a case. And at that point, you can present any evidence that you want to present. Okay, Mr. Calgreco, any follow-up?
No.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Isaacs. I think we're
Thank
done
you.
now.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Bye.
And you can call your next witness.
All right, I'd like to call Dan Hudson, please.
Yes, I do. Hudson, Hudson.
You've already stated your name for the record, Mr. Hudson. Can you state your business address for the record, please?
Yes, I work with Evans Mill Environmental. Our mailing address is P.O. Box 735, Uwchlan with a D, Pennsylvania 19480.
And what is your title with your employer?
Principal engineer, also a managing member of the LLC.
And Exhibit 825 is an accurate copy of your CV detailing your professional experience and background?
Yes,
And you are a professional engineer licensed in the Commonwealth?
yes, that's correct.
And you've been accepted as an expert witness in sewer engineering in various municipal bodies in the county and outside the county?
Yes,
I would submit Mr. Hudson as an expert in sewer engineering.
Does the board have any questions about Mr. Hudson's, just as to his credentials?
No.
Do anyone with party status have any questions for Mr. Hudson, just as to his credentials?
the company name is Evans Mill Environmental.
So we'll accept Mr. Hudson as an expert in sewer.
Thank you. Did Chester Valley Engineers prepare well, first of all, let me take a step back. Is the proposal here to have the subdivision, and by the subdivision, I mean the homes and the natatorium that we've been talking about, is the proposal here to have that connected to public sewer?
Yes,
And did Chester Valley Engineers prepare a sewer exhibit plan dated July 9, 2026, a copy of which is Exhibit 826 in the board's package? And I think that's the exhibit that's up on the screen to my left, is it not?
it's a little
26.
faint in the lower left-hand corner, but it is.
All right. Beginning with sheet 1 of that sewer exhibit plan. Is that sheet 1 on the screen? All right. This shows the property. It's in different colored areas, which represents different phases of the development. I'm not going to get into the phasing of the development with you, but what I am going to ask you is, using that plan, if you can, and do we have a pointer here? Because that might help. Do we have? I'm going to ask you to educate the board, the public, and actually myself as to where the various sewer improvements are on that plan.
I'm gonna have to go take a closer look at the plan. I'm not quite sure that's the correct plan. You talking the plan that shows the routing of the force main?
Hang on for a second.
Maybe I'm mistaken.
I think it was right, the next one right after.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's Exhibit A2, or Sheet 2 rather, of Exhibit 826. Is that it?
That's better. That's the one I was expecting to see there.
Yeah, can you blow it up? Can we blow it up more than that? All right, do the best you can with the pointer, and remember you're testifying on a stenographic record. So when you say here and there, try and orient it
Okay.
so that someone reading this record knows what here and there means.
Well, the project will connect the public sewer by constructing a force main, which is a pressurized pipeline that would extend from the south end of that, the development as shown, and it would follow a routing along the right-of-way of Lionville Station Road and cross. Can I
Your pointer's on the roof.
Well, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Okay, from the south end of the development, it would be pumped along the right-of-way of Lionville Station Road.
Yeah.
And would cross the turnpike and then run along a section of a private property, the Portman Holdings property, then follow Tanner Drive, and then be routed along Cherie Boulevard, would cross Route 100, continue on Cherie Boulevard, and then connect to an existing township manhole located at the intersection of Eagle View and Cherie Boulevards.
All right. How many pump stations are proposed with the proposed subdivision?
At this time, there's proposed to have 3 pump stations in the subdivision.
And can you show where they are? You can go back to that page. That's all right. That had the pump stations on it. Bring it up. Can you see where the pump stations are on that? Can you locate them?
Yeah, one would be located, I'm just having a hard time seeing the pointer, in the northwest corner of the project, another pump station in the northeast corner of the project, and another one at the very southern tip of the project.
All right. Now, obviously, none of this sewer infrastructure is installed or has been constructed at this time. This is not all, at least as far as the improvements on site, this is all new infrastructure, correct?
That's correct.
And you just testified, and I want to be clear for the record, where do you hook up to existing infrastructure?
At the intersection of Eagle View and Cherie Boulevards.
Okay. And right now, did you have an opportunity to review the July 9, 2026 review letter by HRG, which is the township's consultant, regarding the conceptual sewer plan for the proposed development?
Yes.
Okay. And do you agree with HRG's conclusion regarding the capacity necessary for the residential and non-residential portions of the proposed development?
Yes.
And at the end of the day, that I'm ballparking, that was approximately 91,000 gallons per day of capacity. Is that correct?
Correct. Plus the natatorium would be an additional 3,400.
I think that may have been inclusive of the natatorium, that 91,000, but we can double check that.
Okay.
All right. And right now, as HRG notes in its review letter that I just mentioned, right now that capacity does not exist, correct?
That's correct.
And there are various steps that the municipality and DARA, the Downingtown Area Regional Authority, must take in order to create that capacity, correct?
Yes.
And the first step, at least as far as Uwchlan Township was concerned, was the submission or the approval of an Act 537 plan, a sewer, I'll just call it a sewer master plan for colloquial reasons, to DEP on June 30th, 2026, which is the first step in designating where the flows for this property and others would eventually be treated, correct?
Correct.
And that would be at the Downingtown Area Regional Plan.
Yes.
But that plan itself needs to be expanded in order to accommodate this capacity, correct?
Correct.
And those steps are presently being undertaken. The procedural steps are presently being undertaken by DARA as well as the other member municipalities. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And the applicant realizes that approval of this plan is contingent on the fruition of that sewer planning by both Uwchlan Township, the member municipalities of DARA, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have any further questions for this witness.
Does the board have any questions? Okay. So is Mr. Empey here? Do you have any questions for this witness? We lost the, hold on a second, we lost the microphone.
Yes, can that be 487 Lionville Station Road? I apologize, but when you pointed out, I could not see where those stations are. Could you be more specific? That's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
It might be easier if I get up and point to them.
Yes.
Thank you, Rick. That pump station he's pointing to now would be in the northeast corner of the project. That's one of them. That's another one at the very southern tip of the project. And another one where he's pointing out in the northwest section of the project.
Okay, thank you. Are these subterranean? Are they above ground? Do they make a lot of noise?
They're in ground. The basic structure of a pump station is what they call the wet well. It's basically like a giant manhole that the sewage would flow into, and it houses submersible pumps. And a little bit of it extends above ground, but for the most part, you don't see much of it from a distance.
Okay. Do you have any kind of metrics, like how many decibels you would hear within 50 feet, 100 feet?
They would have a generator that would utilize the highest level of sound attenuation. I don't have a decibel figure for what you would hear at a given distance. It's similar to like a truck, like a delivery van. That generator would run once a week to exercise it.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Wider? Mr. Engel? Well, let me just go through the list. Okay. Oh, sorry. No, we'll Angle. You're towards the end only because we'll be going in the same general order. Ms. Matthews?
What alternatives are you considering to this DARA plan if it doesn't go through? Alternatives like on site? What would happen even with DARA if the pumps fail? What mediations would be taken?
Well, the first question would be if they can't get capacity in DARA. I guess I'd have to defer that to the municipality. I know there were alternatives investigated. Presently, a lot of the sewage from the township, at least a section of it, that we would pump into is treated at the Eagle View treatment plant, which is an aging plant that doesn't have capacity for this additional flow. I believe one alternative would be to increase the capacity of that plant and give it a major upgrade.
Just to be clear, this proposal does not propose an alternative. This proposal is reliant on the expansion of DARA. If it's not available, we would have to come back to the board and amend the application if there even was another suitable way of, handling the sewage. So, no, there is no plan B. This would be contingent on the DARA expansion.
And then I think Ms. Matthews had a second part of the question, which I don't remember. About failure. Oh, in the event of failure.
You'd fix them. As I understand it, the pump stations will be dedicated to the municipality to own and operate, and they would be responsible for operation.
All right. Ms. Dwyer? Is Ms. Dwyer here? Mr. Siegel? Ms. Siegel? Mr. Martin? Mr. McLaughlin?
So in the case of a power outage, the generator kicks on and drives the pumps.
Yes,
Otherwise, it's all running by how?
by gravity to the pump from the homes to the pump stations.
Okay, so when the power goes out, generators kick. Is there noise or smell associated with this?
Not from a distance of more than, say, 50 to 75 feet.
And is there required setback from the property line for those pumps?
Not as far as DEP is concerned. The municipality may have guidelines that they would like to see.
Okay, and when will the Dara sewer be live to handle that sewage?
Well, HRG, the Township Sewer Consultant estimated 3 years the work would be complete and available for the township to tie into.
From what date?
From
The July month?
from their letter of July, what was that, July 9th letter?
That's July of 2029.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chadsey?
I was just curious, what is the approximate length of the high pressure line, the pressurized line, and how much of that would be bored and how much of it would be open trench?
I think
Open trench. Sorry.
may defer to Chester Valley engineers on that. The overall length of that line is about 4,300 feet. I know the length underneath the turnpike would definitely be bored. I'm not certain about the crossing under 100.
Okay, so the whole length there is only 4,400 feet from the subdivision to where it ties.
Approximately.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And more of that may be bored depending upon construction costs and logistics.
And what is the diameter of the pressure line?
It hasn't been confirmed yet, but it's probably going to be 6 inches.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Fertel? Mr. Denny? Ms. Blatcher? Ms. Lager? Now,
I just have a question. At a previous hearing, I recall them saying that the pumps would be in soundproof little self-contained houses and that we wouldn't hear any noise. Since one of them is located right near the border of our property, I wondered if the generators are going to be in there too. I know how much noise our generator makes when the power goes out. Is this generator going to run like once a day or only when the power is out? And is that going to be in that same little soundproof house?
The pumps would be in a precast concrete structure, basically below ground. The generator would be above ground in a weatherproof acoustic enclosure. So you would hear the generator. Typically, they'll exercise the generator for about 20 minutes once a week. And you can pick whatever time you want to run it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lager? Ms. May? All right. I was going to finish and then. Okay. No, probably makes sense. Any comments from the township sewer consultant? So just give your name and
Sure.
your company and what your role with the township is.
Okay. Hi, I'm Emily Mastroli. I am a staff engineer with HRG. And just for clarification, the estimated wastewater flow for the residential portion of the proposed development would be approximately 91,000 gallons per day, as was said previously. But that did not include the natatorium. The natatorium is a separate 3,400 gallons per day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Hudson was correct when he testified. I was incorrect when I clarified him. What happens when a lawyer plays sewer consultant?
You always listen to the lawyer, though.
No. Don't always listen to the lawyer.
So do you have any follow-up? And do you have any questions for the township consultant?
No.
All right, then that's, I am gonna, I'm sorry, I should, your name was Emily? Okay. And I'm just gonna ask that you be sworn. That's. And does that apply to the testimony that you just gave as well? Do any of the people with party status have any questions for the township consultant? Okay, seeing none, okay, we can move on to the.
No,
Supervisor Moody has a question.
Oh, do any of the supervisors have a question?
I do.
Okay, sorry.
Not for you, for Mr. Hudson, and maybe for Rockwell, because this is going to be phased in.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you want to ask the Rockwell's consultant a question?
Well, I'm not sure to whom it will actually
Okay,
be
that's fine.
answered by, so I want to ask the question. Because this will be phased in, is there a danger of service gaps? And how will that be handled since there's not currently the capacity for the wastewater management? So just how will development phasing be aligned with the development of the actual storm? So I'm not sure who will answer that question, but hopefully you understand the question.
Yes. So we would have to connect the sewer, even though it's not all being connected online. But the main sewer will be connected through the community and then under the turnpike. Initially, we're going to have approximately 50 homes connected before, and then there is going to be a gap in time until there is upgraded. But we will have to make the connection of the sewer in order for any one house to get connected. Did that answer your question?
Kind of. I mean, I guess if I'm a resident or for whoever, will there be, you say there will be a gap. So kind of explain what that means.
Yep. So right now we anticipate an initial 50 homes being built and connecting the sewer down underneath the turnpike and through. And then we kind of have to wait for additional capacity to come online in order to build additional homes in the community.
And do you know about how long that might take?
I think we just heard it's approximately 3 years from July. So it's about 3 years from today before that capacity would be upgraded. We also have a lot to do between now and then. We still have a final plan to submit.
Okay.
And we have other permitting that we have to get from agencies outside of just Uwchlan Township. And while that's happening, we then are planning architecture and design of the homes. And so we were going to try to dovetail that together so that it kind of works from a timing standpoint.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So anyone else from the board or staff have any questions?
One question, Bobby Cagle, the township manager, and I may, depending on whether my question makes sense, I may defer to our township engineer. And I'm not sure who the question is best answered by, but I know we've had some internal staff dialogue around with the capacity not existing today for the majority of the development, how you go about recording the plan to be able to then get the necessary other agency approvals without the sewer capacity actually existing and being able to have the DEP sign off and say, yes, this is possible.
I think, Bobby, the way we probably approach this, and it's, I'd have to think about that if we get to the point where the plan is finally approved. So we still have a couple of years ahead of us in that front. But I think probably what it would be either a condition of the final plan approval that you would only record the portion of the plan that showed the sewer improvements and the 50 units that would be served initially. That's one option. We've seen in other townships an option where the plan gets recorded with a note that says that no units can be constructed unless and until, the sewer. And we've seen third options where the plan doesn't get recorded at all until, the sewage capacity is available for the entire development. That's a conversation that, we'll have with the township if we get to that point with the solicitor and how that best works out. I think there are a bunch of other developments in the area. I shouldn't say a bunch, a few other developments in the area that are in the same boat, that they're going through the approval cycle, all contingent on this DARA, expansion.
Would you like to move your exhibits at 825 and 826?
Thank you. Yes.
Board have any objection to those exhibits?
No.
Parties have any objection to those exhibits? All right, the exhibits are admitted.
So can I ask I'm sorry, jumping back. I mean, I Bobby brought up a great point, and I guess how would you handle, from a finance point of view, 50 homes isn't gonna probably cut it based on what you guys are paying. I guess you would take that at risk. You'd start building, and then I'm just wondering, we'd have stranded infrastructure or something like that in that event. It's just a kind of, I don't even know what my question is, but
I think your question,
does
your question's it's a good practical question. I don't think it's a legal one. I think it's a Greg, a you question, but it's just how far down the road do you go with actual site development work with that contingency still outstanding? That's a good question.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts when you have a project this big, and we still, until we haven't even finalized design of sewer and everything else. So we really have a lot of work to do on our side, even to get this to a recordable form. And while we're doing that, the clock is ticking on the DARA projects. So we think the timing will work actually pretty well.
Okay. So you're comfortable kicking the can?
Yeah, I mean, there's many other things that we're going to have to kick the can on. That's just one component to a big project.
It's sort of it's not unusual to a permit, an approval contingent on PennDOT approval. A lot of times you go down the road, no pun intended, but you think you have PennDOT improvements nailed down, and then they throw a high inside fastball, and you have to, adjust for that accommodation. So it's an iterative process. If we were fortunate enough to get tentative plan approval, the ordinance amendment, as Greg pointed out, there's probably, at least a year and a half of machination before the final plan. We would even present it for final approval.
Mr. Calgarico, any follow-up? Okay, you can call your next.
Thank you. Next question, or next witness would be Rick Stratton.
Well, sure. So we are gonna let anyone with party just on the additional discussion that was had after you asked your questions. You can come up and ask a question again.
I'm sorry, probably. Oh, John Lager, LA, New York. I just get to the point. The first 50 homes. What do you think the earliest is that they would be operating?
Yep. It's really a guess at this point. It probably takes another year of getting the plan in recordable fashion. It's a year of getting infrastructure in place. It's a year to get the first house completed, and then you still have the other 49. So it's very well could be 3 years before the first house, in best case scenario, would be ready.
Anyone else just on these last questions that were asked? All right, Mr. Calgarico.
Benton.
Yes, I do. Richard Stratton, Stratton.
Rick, could you state your business address and your place of employment for the record?
112 Moores Road, Suite 200, Malvern, Pennsylvania, 19355. I work with Chester Valley Engineers.
And you are the civil engineer that's responsible for putting together the tentative plan submission for this project?
Yes, I am.
And Exhibit 827 is a copy of your CV?
Yes,
You are a professional engineer licensed in the Commonwealth?
I am.
And have you appeared before municipal bodies in and around Chester County and been accepted as an expert witness in civil engineering?
Yes.
Okay. I would submit Mr. Stratton is an expert in civil engineering.
Does the board have any questions regarding Mr. Stratton's credentials?
I do not.
No.
Staff? Any of the parties? All right, we'll accept Mr. Stratton as an expert in civil engineering.
Thank you. So, Mr. Stratton, you prepared Exhibit A11, which is the cumulative PRD set that's before the board for approval, correct?
Yes.
You've also, I think your office prepared the exhibit that's on the television screen to my left, which is the rendered version, I guess, of the title plan of Exhibit A11, correct?
We did not prepare the colored rendering. We contributed line work that a renderer then used to make it colorful and more presentable here.
And you also prepared the environmental impact assessment, which is marked as Exhibit A28?
Yes, we did.
Okay. You've been to the property, you're familiar with the property, and you're familiar with the zoning ordinance of Uwchlan Township?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the draft text amendment and map amendment that the applicant has proposed for adoption, correct?
Yes, I am.
I'm going to ask you a number of questions that are taken right from the draft ordinance amendment, in which we will demonstrate, hopefully, compliance with the requirements of the PRD ordinance. And some of this is going to be rather boring. Some of it might be interesting, but I have to go through it nevertheless. The maximum permitted density for a PRD1 development under the draft ordinance is 2.75 dwelling units per gross tract area. What is the density proposal for the tentative plan now pending before the board?
2.01.
Okay. And how many gross acres is the property?
The property is approximately 246 acres.
All right. In section 511.18, B as in boy, of the proposed PRD ordinance, a PRD has to contain at least two types of residential uses. Does this PRD plan contain two types of residential uses?
Yes, it does.
What are they?
There are detached residential dwellings and semi-detached residential dwellings.
Okay. And what percentage of single-family detached dwellings is depicted on the rendering Exhibit A12?
The rendering depicts 75.45% single-family detached dwellings.
And the single-family semi-detached dwellings, what percentage of the housing mix is that?
It's the balance, which is 24.34%.
Okay. Now that poses an interesting issue, and it's a waiver request that we're going to present to the board. When the first plan was presented, filed with the township, and even in subsequent iterations up until June, which is the plan that's now before the board, the applicant did meet the ordinance requirement that says that you cannot have more than 60% of any dwelling type on the plan. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Prior to the submission of the June application and following the appearance before the Planning Commission, the density was reduced by eliminating a number of the attached units, correct?
Correct. It was reduced.
And in doing that, that increased the percentage of semi-detached or of detached units up to 75%, correct?
That is correct.
So while the ordinance has a max of 60% of any one dwelling type, ironically, the reduction in density has led to more single-family detached units, which would be 75% instead of 60%, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And we would be asking the board in its decision, if it was inclined to approve this, to grant that waiver, again, caused not by an increase in the housing on the plan, but actually caused by a decrease in the housing in the plan.
Yes.
Would each dwelling unit comply with the minimum lot area, yard setbacks, and maximum building heights permitted in the PRD overlay?
Yes, the single-family detached are required to have at least 6,000 square feet The smallest here would be 6,600 square feet. And the smallest semi-detached lot is required to be at least 3,000 square feet, where the smallest provided here is 3,300 square feet.
All right. Do you have that pointer?
I do.
I probably should have done this originally. Can you give the board some idea, looking at that plan, because all these blocks look the same to me, but can you depict where approximately the single-family detached units would be first, and then we'll get into the attached units?
The single-family detached units are proposed here in the western area of the site. That's west of the stream. All of the units on this west side are detached units. On the east side of the site, the majority of the units proposed here are detached, as shown in the eastern central portion of the site. Some of them also extend up to the northern portion. And the semi-detached are depicted in an orange color. There is a cluster of them at the southernmost end of the site near the intersection of Lionville Station Road and 100. And there's also some semi-detached units in the northeast corner. Those are close to the proposed amenity space.
The draft ordinance amendment adopts the township's existing parking requirements for each type of dwelling unit, correct?
Yes.
And what is that requirement?
2.5 spaces per dwelling unit.
Okay. By the way, the 2.5, is there parking in excess of that 2.5 spaces per dwelling unit on the plan?
There is. Each home has a total of 4 parking spaces assigned to it. 2 of those spaces are inside garages, and 2 spaces are in the driveway for that parcel. So each residential parcel will have 4 dedicated parking spaces assigned to it.
All right. Setting aside the dedicated parking spaces for the units, is there other parking shown on the plan? I'm just talking about the residential now for, I'll use the word overflow parking.
Yes, for guests in overflow, there is some on-street parking on many of the streets. That on-street parking is typically on the same side of the street as the proposed sidewalk. And there's also some pull-in parallel parking dispersed throughout the site.
Okay. I'm going to talk about setbacks now. The draft ordinance has proposed tract boundary setbacks. And we say the word tract, we're talking about the entirety of the property, both the what we referred to in the first hearing as the Eli Kahn property at the top of the plan, and the rest of it being the DASD property. Together, we'll call that the tract. The ordinance requires boundary setbacks from agricultural uses of 300 feet. Where does that boundary exist on this plan?
300-foot setback exists along the eastern boundary of the site between the residential homes in the east central portion of the site and the shared boundary with Milky Way Farm to the east. So there's 300-foot setback here.
And from other residential uses, there's a requirement of 150-foot setback, correct?
That is correct. There are residential uses to the north here on the plan, and there is a minimum of 150-foot setback provided. In most cases, our setback exceeds the 150 requirement.
And then finally, there's a 50-foot setback from all other uses. Where would that be on this plan?
That would exist where the development abuts some existing commercial property on Haywood Drive. There is a 50-foot setback between the residential home and the commercial use on Haywood Drive. There is also a 50-foot setback between the backs of the residential lots on the west side of the site and the Turnpike interchange.
The draft zoning ordinance permits impervious coverage of the entire tract up to 45%. I know the calculations at this time still have to be refined, but based on the PRD filing before the board, the tentative plan, what is your maximum impervious tract coverage?
So what we did is we do have an impervious coverage that we can pretty precisely calculate for the natatorium, for the proposed roads, for the amenity space. But on a lot by lot basis, because the homes haven't been completely designed and every single driveway has not been designed, what we did is we assumed the maximum impervious per lot would be built, which would be 60%. And so if we said every single residential lot in this development reached its max impervious coverage, which is 60% per lot, the overall impervious coverage for the development would be 30.25%, where 45% is allowed.
Referring again to Exhibit A12, the rendered site plan, can you please describe the road network, both existing roads and then proposed roads for the subdivision?
Yes. The Lionville Station Road is an existing township road which travels south to north on the plan. It bisects the development. That is an existing township right-of-way. There is a proposed realignment for a portion of Lionville Station Road that will be reconstructed and realigned. But the remainder of Lionville Station Road, the far southern portion and the northern portion of Lionville Station Road, will follow the same existing alignment. The road will be widened, curb will be built, and so that's Lionville Station Road. There will also be constructed an extension of Haywood Drive. There is on the western portion of the site, Haywood Drive currently ends at a paved cul-de-sac. Haywood Drive would be extended. It would enter into the site at the northwestern side of the site, and Haywood Drive would be constructed to intersect with Lionville Station Road at a proposed roundabout. The development also proposes a number of interior roads to provide access to every single lot, every single residential lot. There's a proposed network of internal streets which would be owned and maintained by the HOA, not the township. And that is also true for the eastern side of the site. There are proposed networks of streets providing access to all of the homes, and those would also be HOA owned and maintained. The only portion of this site which will have a township road will be Lionville Station Road, which runs again north and south.
I'm going to refer you now to Exhibit A29, which gets into a little bit more of the particulars of what you just testified to. It's called a right-of-way exhibit plan for Lionville Preserve, which I believe you prepared, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we'll punch that up here in just a second. Is that it? I think that's it. There you go. Okay, this shows in a little bit better detail what you just testified to. Let's talk about Lionville Station Road and what the right-of-way ordinance or what the draft zoning ordinance requires vis-a-vis right-of-way for the newly constructed portion of Lionville Station Road.
Lionville Station Road, the right-of-way the right-of-way required here is 60 feet, is the required width for that right-of-way.
And that's what you're showing, right?
Yes.
But not for the entire length of Lionville Station Road.
Correct. There is a portion to the north which we are keeping the existing right-of-way with.
When you say to the north, at the top of the plan, north of the proposed roundabout?
That is correct.
And that would stay at its current
That would
width?
stay in its current width. Yes.
Well, what's the reasoning for that?
A couple of reasons. One would be to discourage through traffic to use that northern road to continue and exit the site, and also to minimize impervious area and leaving the roundabout, the pavement will transition back to existing gradually.
So right now, we're proposing to leave the existing 20-foot cart width to remain on the north side, when 38 feet would be the ordinance requirement for new roads, correct?
Yes, we are requesting a waiver.
You're also requesting waivers from certain roadway design standards for the private roads within the development. You just testified to the fact that Lionville Station is the only road that's going to be publicly owned, at least as proposed at this time. What are those other waivers? Without getting too technical, but what are the other waivers that you're seeking as pertains to the internal streets?
So the other waivers we are seeking are for the horizontal radii. There are several instances on the plan where some of the private roads have a radii at their curves that is less than the township required 250 feet. We are requesting a waiver from this requirement. Bowman suggested or recommended approval of this waiver, assuming that the posted speed limit on these internal streets was 20 miles per hour. So they're low volume, low speed streets. The vehicles will be moving slowly, and we think this is an appropriate design. It also helps maximize the amount of open space we can preserve.
Interestingly, even though these streets are the streets in green, I'll say, on the exhibit that we're now looking at, are not proposed to be dedicated to Uwchlan Township, there's a, I won't say requirement, but there's a suggestion in the ordinance that where the roads are going to be privately maintained, that the right-of-way is subject to determination by the township, by the Board of Supervisors. So while the right-of-way, not the cartway width, but while the right-of-way or these private streets may be required to be one number, we are seeking a waiver from that, correct?
Yes, 50 foot would be the minimum suggested right-of-way width for the private streets. We are requesting a waiver to provide 38 feet. We believe the 38 feet allows us to install all the infrastructure. It's wide enough to provide on-street parking. It's wide enough to provide a sidewalk and safe navigation by all vehicles needing to access the site, including emergency vehicles.
You may have already touched on this, but the township's ordinance, section 502.8C, regarding intersection spacing, you're seeking a waiver to permit less than the required 150 feet of separation between the center lines of two intersections in the development. First of all, can you show where that is on this exhibit?
Yes, there is an intersection in the middle of the site, which there's an intersection of Lionville Station Road, and I believe we are calling it Road 11, and that Road 11 continues interior towards the east, and the intersection here, Road 11, is very close to another intersection which then travels east. So the two intersections here are very close together, closer than what is allowed. We are allowed to be, the minimum distance is 150, but right now these intersections are 130 feet apart. We think this is ideal because this road crosses Lionville Station Road directly to the natatorium site. So we think this is an appropriate layout.
And has there, in the review letters that you've gotten from the municipal traffic consultant, has there been an objection to this waiver request?
No.
All right.
No objection.
And finally, when we'll get off roadway design, section 502.10C of the township's ordinance allows a cul-de-sac roadway less than 250 feet in length within the community. or we're seeking a waiver from that. The ordinance requires a cul-de-sac can't be less than 250 feet in length, but we are seeking a requirement or a waiver from that requirement. Can you show where that
Yes,
is?
there is a proposed cul-de-sac on the northeast corner of the site that is shorter than the 250-foot minimum length. And the reason for this cul-de-sac being proposed here is it does provide access to the proposed pump stations. It will provide access to some of the proposed stormwater management facilities. And it also cannot be extended further to 250-foot length because of other natural areas that need to be preserved, including steep slopes.
And as with the other waivers, was there any objection from the municipal traffic consultant regarding the grant of this waiver?
No, there was not.
There were some comments in the Bowman review letter that the plan will require modifications to the plan, specifically comment 17. The Bowman letter identifies several locations where private residential roads, the stopping site distance is less than 200 feet. You're not asking for a waiver there. You're going to modify the plan, or you would modify the plan as a condition of tentative plan approval to satisfy that ordinance requirement?
That is correct. We can modify the plan to satisfy and address that comment.
And in comment 19 of the Bowman review letter, it's noted that the intersection of roads 14 and 15 is awkward and could pose driver conflict. How are you going to remedy that?
So there is an intersection in the northwest corner of the site on an interior road. We propose to remedy this with a two-way stop, and we will ensure that emergency vehicles can navigate through this intersection, and therefore we will design it that way. And
It's my understanding the intersection is going to be designed as a two-way stop intersection.
a two-way stop, correct.
Okay, let's move off of the roads. Let's get into open space, recreation, and pedestrian connectivity. The draft ordinance would require that 35% of the PRD's gross tract area must be set aside as common open space. Does this application meet that requirement?
Yeah, the proposal exceeds the requirement. Approximately 127.5 acres of the property will be preserved as open space, which is 50.24%, higher than the 35% required.
Now, of that required open space, 50% must be passive recreation area available for public use. Will this tentative plan meet that ordinance requirement?
Yes, it will.
Okay. And that's going to be refined based on the review letters we received from the township civil engineer. That's something that's going to be continually refined should the plan be approved, going from tentative to final, the exact location and boundaries of that recreational or that open space, correct?
Yes.
Right now, is it safe to say that the principal activity in the passive open space is a walking trail?
Correct. There's walking trails on the eastern side of the site, and there is a proposed walking trail on the central part of the site, weaving in and around the wetlands and the stream area.
And there are no ball fields, soccer fields proposed within the open space area, correct?
Correct. No athletic fields proposed.
All right. The sheet 5.3 of the tentative PRD plan is a conceptual phasing plan of the development. And right now, is it safe to say that that sheet depicts approximately 3 phases of development for the property?
Yes, 3 phases are proposed on that plan.
Okay. And are recreational facilities and open space areas incorporated into each phase of the development in accordance with the PRD overlay?
Yes, there are, in phase 1, there is proposed the amenity space In subsequent phases, there are additional trails proposed.
Just using Exhibit A12, roughly, can you depict, because it hasn't been finalized yet, and these are tentative plans, can you roughly depict where the phases would approximately occur?
Yes, just give me a moment to. So phase one would be the realignment and reconstruction of Lionville Road and the supporting utility infrastructure underneath. Also in phase one is this northeast portion of the site, which includes residential lots and the amenity space. Phase two would be the western portion, primarily the western portion here of residential homes and the interior network of roads. Currently, phase two also includes incorporation and construction of the natatorium or the aquatic center. Phase three would be the balance of the site, which would be the southeastern portion of residential homes.
And using that same Exhibit A12, can you approximately locate the proposed trail system, where that would be on the property?
Yes, the trail system on the east side of the site begins at the east central portion of the site, with the trail beginning at one of the private roads. That trail continues southward along the eastern boundary and eventually tying back in to the sidewalks here in the private roads. There's also a trail proposed from the parking lot, the northernmost end of the parking lot for the aquatic center. There is a trailhead proposed which enters. If you took this trail, you would walk along it along the stream central to the site. You would cross over the stream and then you'd continue back to where you began. You'd continue southward and then eventually getting back to the trailhead where you began.
And you also spoke about sidewalks as being part of the pedestrian network. You have sidewalks on one side of some streets, both sides of some streets. Can you indicate where the sidewalks will be or being proposed for the subdivision?
Yes, a 6-foot side or trail, paved trail is being proposed along Lionville Station Road. That is the widest trail or sidewalk proposed.
One side?
One side of Lionville Station Road, that would be on the east side. There are also at least one sidewalk on every interior street. Therefore, the entire development is interconnected so that pedestrians can travel from any lot to another on the site. There are crosswalks at each road crossing, providing safe pedestrian passage across the roadways. And eventually some of these sidewalks will lead you to the trailheads.
And will the final design for the trail, by the design, I mean the specifications for the trail, and probably the design to some extent, will that be ironed out, so to speak, between the tentative and the final plan approval?
Yes, it will.
It's interesting, the comment or the review letter from Mr. Thurkoff in his review letter of July 1, 2026 recommends a paved trail. You heard Mr. Lingo say that that is the proposal now, provided the DEP approves that. But I also note that the Environmental Advisory Council suggested pervious materials for the trail. But right now the proposal is to go with the paved trail, correct?
Correct. All pedestrian trails on this plan are proposed to be impervious.
And the applicant has no position on that. If the board were to suggest that they be pervious, then they could be pervious, correct?
That is correct. Other agencies may also opine on the treatment for the trails.
Okay. Would these trails, these paths be designed to ADA standards? Would they have crosswalks and traffic calming near outdoor recreation areas and school bus stops?
Yes, given the primary users of the trail network, all trails will be ADA accessible.
It's a landscaping and planting screen buffer is required within the tract perimeter setbacks per the draft zoning ordinance. Can you describe the applicant's landscape plan for the PRD development?
The landscape plan is comprised of different proposed trees serving different purposes. Some proposed landscaping is for buffering purposes. That would be screening the development from other adjacent uses. Other trees are proposed as street trees per the PRD ordinance or per the township's requirements. Every linear foot of roadway is required to have a certain number of street trees. So there are trees proposed to achieve that. There are trees proposed on some interior parking lots, namely the Aquatic Center parking lot does have some landscaping proposed there. And there may be some trees proposed to offset some of the woodlands disturbance.
The zoning ordinance requires screening along the turnpike and the commercial zoning districts. It has specific requirements for those two areas, calling for a double row of evergreen trees, a minimum height of 7 feet at planting. Will this plan comply with those screening requirements? And using Exhibit A12, where would they be?
Yes, those double rows of trees would be proposed along the site's shared border with the turnpike interchange here on the western side of the site. And then to speak to the commercial use, there'd be some proposed screening where the proposed residence will abut the existing commercial use.
Regarding street trees, Section 51118K requires landscape buffering or fencing between streets and tot lots. In the first place, there's no tot lots on this plan, correct?
Correct. No tot lots proposed.
Right. Or playgrounds.
Correct.
It's an over 55 community. Correct.
Yes.
All right. Does the landscaping plan, will it comply with this standard between streets, the plantings between streets and recreation areas?
Yes.
Okay. And really the recreation area would be the, I guess, around the clubhouse, correct? And the natatorium?
Yes. Yes, correct.
With regard to street trees along Lionville Station Road, has the applicant committed to not plant those trees within the road right-of-way?
Yes, the applicant has committed not to plant those within the right-of-way.
And that was a request made in one of the township consultant reviews, correct? That they not be planted within the right-of-way, correct?
Yes.
And you do meet the street tree requirements, or you will meet the tree requirements regarding number of street trees?
Regarding number of street trees, we will meet the requirement, yes.
There's one area on the plan where there's not going to be any street trees, but however, you'll plant them elsewhere. Where is that area?
There's an area where the Haywood Drive extension will cross over the stream. The bridge or culvert, whatever type of structure is proposed here, will have limited width, and it is not advisable to plant trees in that area where there's limited width to do so. So we will plant other street trees in other areas of the development to compensate where there may be a gap in street trees on this structure here.
And that would be another waiver request to not plant the street trees in that location for the reasons you just said, but instead to plant them elsewhere in the subdivision, correct?
Yes, a locational waiver.
Okay. And while we're on the subject of landscaping and tree planting, you did have an opportunity to review Mr. Thurkoff's July 1, 2026 review letter.
I did.
Review comment number 1 suggests the plan be modified to provide evergreen tree screening between public parking area and the historic Phipps House. That's the one historic resource that we're not proposing for residential use. Does the applicant agree to provide this additional screening?
Yes.
Comment 1B of the Thurkoff review states that a solid evergreen tree buffer should be provided between the reverse frontage lots on the east side of Lionville Station Road and the street right-of-way, and states that additional evergreen trees are needed to screen the back of lots 170, 173, 178 to 198. Can that be accomplished as the plan proceeds to final plan?
Yes.
Okay. And comment 3A states that additional buffering is required behind lots 153 and 154. Again, can that condition be accommodated following tentative plan approval?
Yes, it can.
All right. We're going to deal now with the section regarding woodland removal. Pursuant to ordinance section 51119B, you're allowed permitted woodland disturbance outside the area of riparian buffer to 25% of the total area of woodlands on the property, but you can go to 30% removal if mitigation measures are provided. Does the applicant's tentative plan comply with this standard?
Yes.
How much of the property's existing trees, woodland areas are we intending to disturb?
We're very close to 30%. We're at 29.9%.
And the required mitigation is a mix of 2 shade trees, buffer evergreens, and understory trees for each tree removed that is 12 inches DBH or greater, correct?
Correct.
And you can comply, the plan submission does comply with that requirement, correct?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Is any on-street parallel parking plan planned within the residential areas?
Yes.
Where?
There's on-street parallel parking proposed on many of the east and west interior private streets. That parking only occurs on one side of the street, not both. And so there are about 95, I believe there's approximately 95 on-street parking spaces proposed total. And there are parallel spaces which are slightly different than on-street, where you pull off into a designated parking stall, which is a parallel space, a little more separated from the actual roadway. And so there are a number of parallel spaces as well. That number is 183. And there's, let me correct myself, there are 97 on-street and 183 parallel spaces.
The natatorium, we've already testified, Mr. Lingo testified to this, but the parking shown on the plan for the natatorium is 520 parking spaces, correct?
Yes, 520 surface parking spaces around the natatorium building.
And that's based on Uwchlan Township's off-street parking requirement for an indoor recreational use, correct?
Yes, 1 space per 150 square feet of gross floor area.
Now, if there's going to be shared parking on the natatorium parcel with the township amphitheater, or if there's going to be shared parking for those who want to use the natatorium parking to come and walk the open space, that would be subject to an agreement and details to be ironed out following tentative plan approval?
Yes.
Okay. But the applicant is open to providing that shared parking arrangement for those particular uses, correct?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about the recreational area that's the clubhouse, I'll call it, for the over 55 community. How many parking spaces are provided for the clubhouse?
There are 43 parking spaces proposed in a surface parking lot adjacent to the proposed clubhouse.
And the existing township ordinance and the proposed ordinance doesn't contain any parking ratio for these accessory clubhouse amenities, correct?
Correct. It doesn't fall into an easily defined category for the township code.
So how did you come up with the number 43?
Just based on the applicant's experience with other clubhouses in residential developments.
So that information came from Mr. Lingo, and if more detail is needed as to why that number was chosen, he would be the one to answer that question, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Stormwater management, I know we're only at the tentative plan stage, but can you briefly give the board some idea generally of how stormwater management will be handled for the property? And by that I mean above ground basins, proximate locations, below ground storage, proximate locations.
Yes, we are going to manage stormwater on this site from the developed site um, with a couple of different types of basins. Some will be surface basins that is visible from a person just walking by. And some of the stormwater management will be underground. And the only evidence of the underground storage might be an access port or a manhole. Stormwater management, the goal is to mitigate runoff from this site to manage the rate of runoff, the volume of runoff, and the quality of runoff. And the township ordinance requires this development to make those, to mitigate those to equal to or better than existing conditions. And that's exactly what our stormwater management will do. There are approximately 28 or 29 different structures dispersed throughout the site. Most of them are, I would say, are underground. Some are surface basins. Stormwater will be collected in catch basins. They'll be routed to the treatment facility, whether it be underground or above ground. That facility will do its job per the detailed design, and it will have an outfall structure, which per the design would only see flow in larger storms. And the current plans are a conceptual design of stormwater. We are now in the process today of beginning to detail those designs based on soils testing on the site.
Do you have any approximate idea of where the above ground facilities would be, knowing that it'll be modified somewhat going to final plan, but where would you picture or where would you estimate that the above ground stormwater retention facilities will be?
There is one proposed above ground facility, I'd say northwest of the aquatic center parking area. There will also be an above ground system proposed on the western side of the site. There's an interior triangle inside of some residential lots, and that interior triangle will be the location of an above ground system. I believe there are also several above ground systems proposed on the western side of the site, adjacent to the riparian buffer in the stream. There may be one other surface basin along the eastern side. The remainder will be underground.
And for more detail, you did prepare Exhibit A30, which is the conceptual stormwater management report, last revised June 11, 2026, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Will the development, we already talked about public sewer, will the development be served by public water via underground connection?
Yes, there is currently an Aqua-owned main that runs north and south along Lionville Station Road. That main will likely be updated to accommodate this development. And then the water main will be extended into the residential streets to serve all of the homes and the aquatic center.
And Exhibit A31 is Aqua's representation that it can serve the proposed development. Is that correct? Dated January 2, 2026?
Yes, we call this a will serve letter.
Okay. And did you have the opportunity to review the July 15, 2026 review letter issued by the township's building inspector and fire marshal regarding the site design?
Yes, I did.
He had a number of comments, mostly which pertain to the natatorium and fire service to the natatorium. I'm going to go through those comments. There's not many. And then that'll conclude your testimony, your direct testimony. The first comment was that there's a lack of dedicated fire apparatus access road around the perimeter of the natatorium building. Is he correct in that statement?
Yes, there are some parking spaces proposed directly adjacent to the perimeter facade of the aquatic center. And so there is currently no fire lane designed to provide direct adjacent access to the building. If a fire truck were to pull up next to this proposed building, there may be a car parked in between the fire truck and the building. So we can address that comment by displacing a number of spaces that are right next to the building to other locations so that we meet our parking demand, but also provide fire access.
So you agree with the comment, and the fire access road would be provided around the perimeter of the building, correct?
Correct.
Second comment was there's a lack of designated fire lanes within the natatorium parking lot, raising concern that the fire access would be inhibited when the parking lot is full.
Yes, I saw that comment. We examined the maneuverability of Uwchlan Township's fire apparatus in and around the parking lot around the aquatic center, and we can demonstrate that that apparatus can make all movements within the parking lot to both access the building and all of the parking stalls. Those fire vehicles can make pretty tight turns considering their size. They're designed to do so. And our parking lot meets the township's requirement in terms of aisle widths and parking stalls dimensions. And this aquatic center parking is no different than any other parking lot designed in the township.
And the third request was the truck turning template around the clubhouse and amenity buildings, which you said you will provide.
We will provide that, yes.
And the plans, when we get to building permit stage, hydrant coverage will be provided on all sides of the natatorium?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any further questions for this witness at this time.
Does the board have any questions?
Yes. And just a procedural question, because I imagine that all three of us have questions of some sort related to all of that. Would it be easier to go through the questions grouped by topic? Because we just discussed open space, traffic, connectivity, woodland disturbance. Like, can we all just ask questions on one and then have response?
That's fine.
Okay. Just so we're not
And Mr. Calgreck, you're okay with that? Yeah.
just trying to help everyone's brain out a little bit. Oh, I would love to start. Thank you. So at the beginning of your testimony, Mr. Stratton, you had indicated that there was a waiver requested for the types of housing, the percentage of housing offered under the PRD.
Yes.
Can you explain what happened between, we'll call it the Planning Commission submission and the final submission that we're looking at today that made it non-compliant? Sure.
Sorry. We worked closely with not only the staff here, but our professionals, and we had some meetings to talk about how the plan would change from what we had submitted to the Planning Commission to ultimately what we submitted here in June. And one of the things was a reduction in density, a significant reduction in density. So we essentially eliminated two of the different house types and then combined them with one. So we just had less of the attached homes here. And in clustering it this way, we were able to also add the amphitheater as well as a few other things throughout the community. So there were a lot of changes, not just the product types.
So was that strictly just a design consideration as far as the ultimate inventory of housing that we ended up with?
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got notes all over, so it might take me a minute. Continuing the density discussion, the Planning Commission submitted a recommendation of no more than 400 homes. Can you explain why the final plan that you submitted has 492 homes as opposed to 400?
Yes. from an economic standpoint, the 400 homes that was recommended by the Planning Commission was not something that we were able to move forward with. And based on the fact that with all of our other meetings, it seemed as though the 55 plus housing was the direction that nearly all the stakeholders wanted us to pursue. We worked with staff to come up with a revised plan, and in doing so, it had more units than the 400.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So just to be clear, with the 55 plus, that was a contractual agreement with the school district, and the information, as I understood it, was that that was not up for negotiation, not that that was the one that all stakeholders had presented as a priori what they wanted. This was based on the fact that it was kind of a already settled issue.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the school district, our seller, was the one that wanted 55 plus. I just meant our residential plan rather than what the by right zoning was.
And then just a question, again, comparing the plan that was shown to the Planning Commission versus the final plan that's a part of this PRD submission. From what I can tell, on the Planning Commission plan, oh, actually, I'll save this for a different category. Are there any other density questions? No. Okay. In order of testimony, we talked about traffic next. So you had talked about the northern cartway coming out of the traffic circle towards the top of Lionville Station Road. The northern section of that was not going to be resurfaced or redone.
It will be resurfaced, but it will not be widened.
And why is that?
So again, we're trying to discourage through traffic to use that northern connection to exit the site. And we thought that returning back to the existing width would help promote that, but also reduce impervious on the site.
Do you not anticipate that residents of the neighborhood that would be visiting family that live nearby would not be traveling north into the Chester Springs zip codes?
The road will still accommodate traffic, and traffic can and will be allowed to use that road. We just thought the reduction in width would discourage some of those movements.
All right. And as far as the radii curve or the radius, I believe in the review letter it stated that that needed to be compliant with the fire apparatus turning mechanisms. Has that been verified?
Yes.
And is there any, I believe what you're calling, parallel? You were referencing two different types of parking, parallel and on street?
Yes, on street is parking spaces where the cartway doesn't necessarily widen. The parking spaces are right there, and you can pull off into a designated parking spot. Parallel is a little bit different because the pavement does widen to allow you more separation from the traveled cartway.
And that maneuverability considers the parking on the plan?
Yes, yes, it does.
Any consideration for if there are children that will be serviced by a school bus in this neighborhood? I understand it's a 55 plus, but that is not necessarily meaning there's not going to be a child that's provided transportation to school. Has there been any consideration on the layout and the depth or the distance between the tight intersections to accommodate for bus stops and bus travel?
We have not studied the movement of school buses on the interior streets.
As far as the northeast corner cul-de-sac, where there'll be a pump station as well as you indicated some stormwater infrastructure, I believe the earlier testimony indicated there would also be some parking within that cul-de-sac that could allow people to access open space. Is that correct?
Yes, but it might be 2 spots only.
And will they be marked, or it's just going to be curb style parking that someone could?
All off-street parking will be marked so that a driver would know that it's a real spot.
Okay, and is there any distinguishment between the any on-street or parallel parking that is designated as part of the residential parking calculations versus what might be available for the general public?
So the residents will have 4 parking spaces on their actual property. All other spaces will not have a special designation to them.
So on parking, like you just said, there's 4 spaces per residence.
Yes.
2 internal and 2 on the driveway.
Correct.
And my understanding is it's 492 units, correct? Is that
Yes,
494?
yes.
Okay. So in the fiscal impact study, which I'm jumping ahead, but it says there's going to be about 809. You expect there to be 809 people, residents in this community. Does that sound right?
That number is probably based on people per household. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not holding you to that number. It's approximately that number sounds right, right?
Sounds right.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, just off the top, that's almost, it's 1,968 parking spots on the residents themselves. And then we have on-street parking of 280 spaces. And then we have some spaces for the open space area. I mean, it all comes up to about 2,400 spaces for a community that has, and that's not counting the natatorium, for about 800 people. It seems like we're missing an opportunity to reduce impervious coverage somewhere along that line, especially when you consider a 55 and older population, which is supposed to have children. Probably, first of all, have lower per person house and have probably lower than normal per cars per person. I just worry that this plan is overparked, and could be, how many, is there any scenario that you can envision where there would be at or near capacity of parking for the community in general?
It's hard to imagine that every residential home would have 4 vehicles parked at it at the same time. But I will say that our conversations with township staff, there was a very serious concern that there wasn't enough parking for guests. So that's why we added a lot more on-street parking and parallel parking. So that was a reaction to comments we got from your staff.
Okay.
We would be open to reducing the number of parking spots.
Okay. And that was my question.
Kind of similar to traffic, the connectivity within the plan that you talked about, as far as someone being able to access a sidewalk or a trail from end to end or either side, that encompasses the connectivity within the parcel. Can you talk a little bit about connectivity from the parcel to surrounding amenities that residents might be accessing off-site, and what kind of safety mechanisms might be necessary for that?
So pedestrian-wise, there is connectivity proposed. A trail will connect into the parking lot for the shopping center next door. The sidewalks here along Lionville Station Road will also extend to that location. I don't believe there are existing sidewalks or pedestrian designated pedestrian accessibility on Haywood Drive, nor is there any sidewalk on Lionville Station North. So to the extent that we can connect to other nearby pedestrian points, we are doing so. Yeah.
And once that connection is made, has there been any consideration to the pedestrian safety once they're off that site? I mean, this is going to bring in a substantial number of new residents that I imagine are going to walk to the shopping center or down the existing connectivity on 113. I think Mr. Lingo had testified last week that that was not a very pedestrian-friendly area. So what considerations have you made as far as improving the pedestrian infrastructure from a safety standpoint?
So the traffic engineer may be able to further address pedestrian accessibility at the intersection of Lionville Station Road and 113. But I think I can speak for the applicant in saying that we'll work with the shopping center to ensure that where pedestrians are being led can be made safe.
Thank you. Any other connectivity questions? No. Okay, open space. We talked about how there's a 35% open space requirement in the PRD ordinance. Can you tell me if that percentage is achieved without consideration of the conservation easement acreage?
I'm unclear exactly of the acreage of the conservation easement in particular. I do know that there are 127 acres of open space proposed. I'd have to refresh my notes to see what exactly the acreage of that conservation easement is, and then recalculate the percentage after that is subtracted.
Okay, that would be something I'm interested in learning about. We talked a little bit about the trails that go through the open space as well as the other parts of the parcel. Is that cost going to be the responsibility of an HOA?
Yes.
Do you have an estimate of what the annual associated cost of the upkeep of the trail infrastructure would be?
I do not.
Do you have any idea of the long-term or capital associated costs that the HOA would be expected to bear with the trail?
I do not.
You also mentioned that there had been a change from a wood chip path within the open space network to a paved path, correct? You said everything on the plan would be paved and accessible?
Correct.
Okay. What kind of stormwater considerations were taken into account in that decision?
So to ensure that it's ADA accessible, a paved path certainly provides a much better accessibility than wood chips. There are options for permeable pavements. We can take a look at those. And we also want to ensure that other agencies who are looking at the trail treatment inside this riparian buffer, that they'll permit a paved trail. So we are working on that detailed design with the Conservation District right now.
And do you anticipate, just from your engineering perspective, the impervious surface to have a positive or a negative impact on the stormwater that enters the Pickering Creek?
So impervious coverage, all impervious coverage must be managed per your code. And so if those trails ended up being impervious, we would have to manage them.
And can you just explain what management of a pervious trail would look like?
Yes.
Thanks.
Stormwater management, I think I mentioned in my testimony, there's three main goals, is to reduce the runoff rate. That's how quickly water leaves the site, so you're not flooding downstream neighbors. The total volume of stormwater that is leaving the site. Our goal is to let this infiltrate into the ground and recharge the aquifer underneath. And also the quality. We want to make sure the quality of runoff that leaves this site is equal to or better than what is coming off the site today.
So for a pervious trail, does that look like a basin? Is it underground storage? I mean, like what kind of actual mechanism would capture the runoff from a paved trail?
So what I have seen is vegetative filter strips along the trail where topography has to help you here so that you're not concentrating runoff to one location. But if you pitch the trail in one direction and you make a vegetative strip, nature does a wonderful job at treating stormwater. So a vegetated strip would help filter and mitigate those stormwater impacts.
And in this situation, the maintenance and upkeep of the vegetated strip would be the responsibility of the HOA?
Yes.
We talked about the open space that is not included in the central corridor of the conservation easement, and that would be the vertical eastern corridor, the top horizontal corridor along the boundary of the property. And Mr. Lingo had testified that that was considered open space and would be accessible to the public. I noticed in one of the pictures that you showed as an exhibit of that area that there was some lawn furniture depicted. I know it was just a rendering, but my question is, how are we going to prevent homeowners that have property on that northeastern half from kind of creeping into that open space?
I'm not an expert on HOAs, but I would assume the bylaws would outline all of what homeowners are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do along the borders of their property.
Those limited, the people will have limited common elements outside of their property that is managed by the HOA. And I will tell you that the management of these communities is pretty rigorous, including earlier we talked a little bit about whether or not students would be living there. In a 55 plus community, children would not be allowed to live there. And that's something that, again, they're pretty vigilant, making sure who's living there at all times. But they're also vigilant on people that are breaking rules as far as what they're adding to their house or adding to their property. So we feel pretty comfortable this will be self-governed well.
And the 55 and older just means that only, at least one person's 55 and older in the house, right?
Yeah, there are laws that specify who can live in the house, but correct. It's a percentage of people, primary people
You have to have
living.
at least one 55 and older, and then no one under 18 is
Correct.
right. So, I mean, you can easily see someone with a 25-year-old child living with them who has a child, who then has at least a gap between the time they have the child and I'm not talking about an infant. I'm saying they come in to live with them. You find out the kid's there. They've established residence. The school has to provide I don't want to go back to this conversation of bus, but it is possible. Like the school does have to provide for them in that instance, and they do have to provide for transportation as well. So the idea that there's a bus that's going through that,
The
I think it's
township,
reasonable.
the HOA would have enforcement powers there. It would be a violation of federal law for them to do that. And I echo what Mr. Lingo said. These over 55 communities have, it seems like they have more policemen, not the generic sense of, not what we call knows policemen, but everybody seems to be looking over everybody's shoulder, and they are policed more than the traditional non-age restricted community. And
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Then I have a question to follow up with the amenities. So there's no, I forget who was saying there's no tot lots, there's no playgrounds. You are proposing in this plan at 30 homes that are standard, and you could expect about 10% of the people to be in, 10%, approximately 10% of the population will be in those homes. Some of them will be families. So there's been any thought for any amenities for that subgroup?
No, we don't believe we don't believe that that's enough to mandate any kind of additional amenities beyond open space and the trails and we feel like having the amphitheater, and it's going to be bringing people from outside this community in to utilize some of these amenities.
Can I just follow up on that with respect to the non 55 plus communities? Going back to the transportation of school buses, does that community allow for the width of the streets, allow for school buses to traverse through? Have you anticipated that?
We can certainly study to make sure that a school bus can traverse. This is a pretty straight section of roadway here. We can check that to make sure that the bus can traverse that. I'm confident it will.
So going back to last week, There was a statement of consistency that was submitted on behalf of the applicant that demonstrates how the plan is consistent with the township's comprehensive plan, which outlines our values as a township. And the two main features that were in that statement of consistency had to do with open space and recreation opportunities, in large part due to the natatorium. So I'm just curious on the decision to remove additional amenities from the natatorium. We talked about not including tot lots, just with such emphasis on the comprehensive plan consistency. Can you talk a little bit about your decision to not offer playgrounds or other amenities throughout?
When following our June meeting 2025 with the Planning Commission, there were a lot of recommendations that came out of that. And one of the most important ones that we heard loud and clear was to reduce the size of the natatorium. And in doing so, it reduced some of the functionality that the natatorium initially had proposed to do. There were basketball courts on there, and there were some other amenities that may be attractive to a younger population. But they nixed those ideas with the goal of reducing that size to the smallest possible size that they could still maintain a self-sustain a business out of. And that's really where the emphasis there was. Because this is overwhelmingly a 55 plus community, we just didn't feel that we don't put tot lots and things like that in any of our other 55 plus communities, and the feedback that we get from our customers is pretty positive.
I think that's understandable for just the 55 and plus community in my mind, at least in my opinion. But the natatorium is certainly meant to service a wider area, even for the local use, not separating out the school and competitive part. So I think that the question still remains about whether you should be focusing just on 55 plus for that amenity. If it's going to be in there, I mean, it's not going to be just 55 being used. In fact, one of the selling points we heard on Thursday was regarding like swim lessons for children. So
swim lessons for children will absolutely still be offered. When reducing the building size, we essentially eliminated the non-swimming functions, basketball courts, as I mentioned, et cetera. But they're still going to be focused on lessons, therapy, plenty of school kids for that, family recreation. And we feel comfortable that senior programming, competitive swimming, that type of stuff will all be really an amenity that the greater populace will utilize that facility for.
On Thursday, you had referenced two additional companies that, in addition to French and Pickering Creek Conservation, would also be involved with the open space. Can you exaggerate? Is that just from a design standpoint? Is that ongoing maintenance? What would be their role?
Initially, it's really just design. We wanted to work. We had a really great kickoff meeting with both Maffey Designs, who does a lot of work in Longwood Gardens, and Wild Birds Landscapes. And we introduced them to the Environmental Advisory Council as well as French and Pickering. And we felt like they related and kind of spoke the same language together on what the common goal was going to be with the conserved space. So we would initially work with them for the design and installation. And then after that, we like to have the installers also be the ones maintaining the property. Typically, at the end, as a community gets turned over from developer builder to homeowners association, the homeowners association will ultimately get the decision on who they use for landscaping and the like, but we'll supply them with the ones that kind of kick-started the community off. And this conserved area, there's great concern with everyone, including us and French and Pickering, to make sure that the HOA fully understands how to maintain this conserved space. We expect it to take about 5 years to have it fully come into bloom and foliage with the designs that we're trying to implement. So it is as easiest if the installer can stay on board, but that'll ultimately not be our decision.
And would the HOA be responsible for the cost of those companies as far as the design stage?
The design stage would be on the developer builder side, that we'll be designing that with them. The maintenance part is where the homeowners association would take over. But none of those costs are expected to fall on the township.
Do you have any idea what the estimated cost of maintenance for that would be for the HOA?
Not yet.
I don't have any more open space questions. I have a lot of stormwater questions, but we might want to break first.
Let's take our 10-minute break here, and we'll reconvene at 8:10. Too. Yeah.
Iris. That's the fun.
Is, okay, hold on. All right, before we continue, we have, we're just going to deal again with some administrative stuff, party status. We've got two more applications. Ask Thomas Ippolito to come up to the microphone. So, Mr. Ippolito, you're seeking party status?
Yes.
Can you just state your, well, your name and address where you live?
Thomas Ippolito, 604 Byers Road, Chester Springs, PA.
Okay. Any objection? Okay, you'll have party status.
Thanks.
And then, Michelle Strayhorn, sorry.
When Uwchlan Township, 1007 Asmore Way, Chester Springs, PA, 194258725.
Any objection? All right, you also have party status. Thank you. All right, you can proceed.
Excuse me, before we start, Mark, can we just address the Dan
Oh,
Hudson
yeah.
issue?
You had asked if.
I'd ask if he could be excused, Mr.
Sewer
Hudson,
engineer,
if he's done, if everybody's done their questions about sewer planning.
Yes. Yep, you're excused.
Enjoy your night. Not that this wasn't enjoyable, but enjoy your night.
Thank you.
All right, so kind of as a segue into the stormwater questions that I have, I wanted to address the woodland disturbance. As part of the PRD application, the applicant is requesting an increase to a 30% disturbance limit in the PRD. Is that correct?
Yes.
Um,
It's to 30%, not over 30%, right?
to 30%.
To 30%,
Yes.
yeah.
Given that this site contains the headwaters of the Pickering Creek, can you tell us a little bit about what benefit to the township and greater public good would occur as a result of the 5% increased limit?
So most of the woodlands removal is occurring on the northeast parcel being purchased closest to Haywood Drive. So the development of that particular parcel is required to construct our roadway connection from Lionville Station Road over to Haywood Drive. And so that's really what pushes us from 25 to 30%. The benefit here is, with the plan we've created, we're able to conserve, we're able to create 127 acres of open space. And for that 5% overage in woodlands removal, as the Thurkoff review letter requested, we will do some tree replacement for that.
And this might be what you just explained, but I noticed on the planning commission submitted plan, there was a 26.5% disturbance percentage, including that northeast parcel. And on the current plan that's part of this submission, it's up to 29.96%. Is that what the increased disturbance was?
Yes.
Were there any other areas on the plan that were impacted from a woodland perspective between those two plan submissions?
There were some areas in the northeast corner of the site that do have some woodlands removal in order to construct stormwater facilities. So that was another piece of the woodlands removal. It was part of the planning commission plan, but I believe that area changed slightly between the last plan that was submitted to the planning commission and now.
And is that stormwater infrastructure located within what's previously been labeled as open space?
Yes, that underground stormwater is in open space.
Are any of the, I think you said 28 or 29 stormwater structures located within open space that involve above ground infrastructure?
Some of the above ground basins are being constructed near open space, but it is our understanding that we cannot count those areas as open space if those are surface basins. So if there is a surface basin, we cannot count that acreage towards open space, and we are not.
So you had pointed to the area directly north of the natatorium parking lot as a stormwater infrastructure, something or the other.
A stormwater facility, an open, a surface basin is proposed here, correct.
And is that within the conservation easement area?
I believe it's in the easement area, but again, that basin itself is not counted in the 127 acres of open space because it is a surface basin.
Did you consider any alternative site layouts that would keep the woodland disturbance at the 25% cap?
Yes, we did our best to keep that number as low as possible. And what you'll see is there's very little grading activity and there's very little infrastructure designed against the edge of the woodlands here. So we did our best to limit tree disturbance as much as possible.
And will there be future HOA restrictions on removing additional woodland space?
I think the applicant would be open to that, yes.
Any woodland questions? No. Okay, moving on to stormwater. Again, given that this is the headwaters of the Pickering Creek, can you talk about how stormwater management was looked at from that perspective? If there's any special consideration given to the sensitivity of that area, and how is that reflected in the design?
So these headwaters are a high quality watershed. There are migratory fishes and there's trout stocking, and that's how the stream is designated by the state. And that will require us to meet certain design requirements by DEP and the Conservation District. Our conceptual design does those, but our final design will do that, will achieve that in greater detail. And the Conservation District will make us.
So as far as the extent of any downstream impacts and modeling that was completed, are you indicating that will be part of the next phase of design?
That'll be part of final design, yes.
It's my understanding that the HOA is going to be deemed responsible for the upkeep of the stormwater infrastructure on site. You had mentioned 28 or 29 basins. Can you talk about what the annual maintenance responsibilities would be tasked to the HOA as far as keeping that infrastructure?
General inspection is required usually once a year. Typically once a year, someone is walking around and inspecting the basins, making sure that the water is draining appropriately, that it's not holding water more than 48 hours after a storm. There's going to be general operation and maintenance guidelines on the final plans, which will outline the O&M requirements for all these basins. For the surface basins, it means you're not letting trees grow in them or invasives grow in them, keeping all the inlets clean. So those activities are going to be required as part of the operation and maintenance plan.
And the someone that you indicated that's walking around inspecting that, is that a required engineer or HOA person?
Yeah, I mean, an engineer is required. I'm not sure that Uwchlan Township, I'm not sure exactly how Uwchlan Township enforces stormwater management maintenance for all of its stormwater facilities. I know other townships, require inspection reports every 2 years, but I'm not sure what Uwchlan requires.
Do you have an idea of the annual cost to the HOA for annual maintenance responsibilities?
I do not.
What type of long-term or capital investment planning is the HOA going to be required to perform for responsible upkeep of the infrastructure?
That's really for fiscal impact. Great.
Yep. So typically, after a plan is approved, we then submit that to property management companies and have them give us proposals on based upon what's important for the HOA to maintain. So until we kind of know how many houses there are and where they are and what all the stormwater management designs, we really can't come up with a full budget on. But there will be both a capital contribution when they move in, and then there will be monthly fees as well.
I understand that you're not going to have a number that you could rely on right now, but I mean, are we talking orders of magnitude? A rough estimate based on, stormwater management, trail management, private roads. Just wondering what we're looking at.
Yeah, in some of our other communities, they can range anywhere from $200 a month to $500 a month.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, the perspective behind that question is just understanding that the HOA and the township sometimes has a challenging relationship because if they fail to maintain their infrastructure, it falls a burden on the township from a financial and a resource perspective. So just trying to understand the potential resource investment from the township's perspective, given the magnitude of the parcel, the stormwater requirements, given the environmental, sensitivities of that area. I think that's all the questions I have right now.
Some questions.
So, okay, so at this point, and Mr. Calgreca, we had talked, this is just figuring out how to do the next step. So we could either finish with the witness, let the public let staff and whoever, let the public ask questions, or we can also allow the township consultants to ask questions and make whatever statements they have now. Then have the public go, and then that would give you an opportunity to at least address it, at the end, if that's okay. All right. So who, as far as township consultants that have some input, it would be Dan Daly, the township engineer, Mike Holmes, the fire marshal, the traffic engineer, and Mr. Cagle. You'll have some comments or questions. So can we ask the four of you to stand up? Figure it'd be under oath in case there's any statements.
I would include French and Pickering Creek Conservation
And
in that
French
as well.
and Pickering
Yep,
Creek
thank you.
Conservation. I'm sorry?
Or
And
landscape.
Thurkoff. Oh. Yeah. So, let's start with Mr. Daly. Do you have any questions or comments regarding the testimony that we heard?
Yes, I'm going to go in order of Rick Stratton's comments here because that's where my notes are kind of established here for this. First question here, Rick, can you confirm the gross tract area? You had stated 246. I don't think that was correct. And just clarify the gross tract area, including, I guess, all parcels, I guess.
Yes, just a moment. Let me check my notes.
And I'm sorry, did I state my name for record? Okay, I'm sorry. It's Dan Daly, Daley. I'm with Edward B. Walsh and Associates, and we're the township engineer.
So gross tract area, I have 237.56 acres.
Does that include, so I have a 253.79.
So if you include, you're right, if you include the JJE property, that is correct. That's another 16.4 acres.
So it's 253.79 acres. Gross tract area is what you're using for your calculations for density and open space calculations.
Yes.
Okay. The next question here is, there was a discussion about the waiver from 511.18 regarding the number of, the percentage for the semi-detached and single-family dwelling units.
Yes.
And I guess the need for that waiver is because this ordinance, although the ordinance hasn't been adopted yet, it's basically been the draft that's been reviewed here by both the township and the consultant. Is there, and maybe this is a question for Lou here, I mean, could you not just change the ordinance rather than the waiver, or ask for that waiver, or is that just create a complication for what's been advertised?
I mean, personally, I think it's just creates more procedural complication because the board in a PRD is, as you know, has the authority to grant those waivers from any ordinance requirements, which adds to the flexibility that's inherent in a PRD. So yeah, you could do it one of two ways, but I mean, if the applicant's willing to cap density at the number they said, which they are, and if the board approves it at that number, which it does, I don't think there's any need to go back and, you know, amend the ordinance, the draft ordinance.
Okay. That's fine. Rick, the on-street parking, you had noted the number of on-street parking spaces here. Just want to ask the question is, obviously, this is a tentative plan, kind of basically a step above a sketch plan layout. The quantity of that is subject to change based upon review of site distance triangles at intersections and parking backups for dwelling units and such, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a tentative plan. It could change a little bit.
Okay. The up in the northwest corner, do you know the setback you have against the existing property there off of a Hayward Drive cul-de-sac? They're required for 150-foot setback to residential, but you are building those units closer to the 150 feet to that existing commercial property there, correct?
No, I'm not sure I agree with that. The residential lots adjacent to other residential lots is at least 150 feet away.
But I'm referring to the commercial property there,
Commercial.
off that property line there that's referring to, we're looking at exhibit, what is this, A12, I believe, on the screen?
Yeah, the requirement there is 50 feet.
For your residential.
Two other non-residential uses, yes, 50 feet.
Okay. But for the commercial property there adjacent to you, they're required to be 150 feet from the residential property, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So if, I know we talked about that before, and I guess what you've completed here is you've kind of increased that buffer along that, between those two uses. Is that what you've done? You've done a double row of evergreen trees in that area?
We've enhanced the buffer with, yes, a double row of evergreens, yes.
So, I mean, I guess ultimately would just be consideration of whether or not the board would want to provide that 150-foot setback to that, from the non-residential use of that. So something to be considered here, as you kind of move forward with the design, if you would consider that, increasing that setback some. The next question I had was related to your maximum impervious coverage. You had listed 30.25 for the tract. Does that include the natatorium impervious coverage?
Yes,
Okay, so the 30.25 is based upon the full 253 acres.
yes.
Okay. Lionville Station Road, you commented about, I was a little confused about the right-of-way and the cartway width. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but are you not proposing Lionville Station Road right-of-way to maintain 60 feet throughout the whole project limits? The right-of-way limits to stay at 60 feet?
Yes, thank you for clarifying. The right-of-way is proposed to be 60 feet. The cartway for Lionville Station Road as it exits the roundabout heading north will be reduced back to existing.
So you'll from the roundabout, you'll transition from the roundabout width to back to meet existing as you head north on Lionville Station Road.
Correct.
So it's that section will still be rebuilt, and you'll just basically make a smooth transition based upon the final design and review by the Township Traffic Engineer for that cartway width.
Yes.
Okay. Haywood Drive extension, that section is, so we have Haywood Drive on the west of the tract. Existing Haywood Drive is a public township road. Haywood Drive is proposed to be private from the property line to the roundabout, correct?
Correct.
And the roundabout here is proposed to be dedicated, or is it proposed to be maintained privately through the HOA?
So we discussed that at length at our last meeting with staff. And I think the agreement we came to was that because it's very difficult for the township to plow and maintain Lionville Station Road and then stop right at the roundabout, it made more sense for the township to maintain the roundabout, the cartway with the travel lane within the roundabout, that the township would maintain that, but the HOA would maintain the center of that roundabout, whether it be landscaped or something decorative there, that would be an HOA. But the cartway of the roundabout would be maintained by the township.
Okay. So obviously we'll have that consideration through the tentative and final plan approval, but I agree that's what we had previously discussed. Okay. The waivers, horizontal radii, posted speed limit, I'm going to defer that to the Township Traffic Engineer to discuss. The road right-of-way private streets, you're basically proposing from a ordinance requirement of 50 feet to a 38-foot wide right-of-way width. You had prepared an exhibit showing that 38-foot wide width is adequate to maintain the road, curbs, utilities, and within that 38-foot wide. Obviously, the final design isn't complete. Will you implement necessary easements on private lots if for some reason utilities can't follow the curvature of the roadway and have enough room to do that and need to encroach onto private lots?
Yes.
Okay. The length, the cul-de-sac length, 250 feet is the minimum for that. Do you know the width the length that you're proposing for that cul-de-sac up in the northeast corner of the site?
I don't know it off the top of my head. I can check it pretty quick here and give you an approximate distance.
I think it's listed in your waiver request here. I'm looking for the two here. 162 feet, it looks like it might be underneath your waiver request.
Yeah, I was going to say 150, but it depends on if you're measuring to the center of the circle or further than that. But yes, 150, 160 is the approximate
Okay.
length.
Your parking plan that you have within your tentative PRD plan set does not show parking at the cul-de-sac area. But you've commented here that there was potential for 2 spaces to be added to that. Is it proposed to be within the bulb or parking spaces outside of the bulb area?
I stand corrected. There are no parking spaces designated on that bulb currently. I think there were at one time. This version of the plan does not have any, but that cul-de-sac would provide parking for any maintenance vehicle that would need to maintain the pump station or have access to the stormwater management facility.
Outside of the bulb area? Because what I don't want to have is that bulb area's
Yeah.
got a certain radii to accomplish turnaround movements for emergency service vehicles.
Yeah.
So
No vehicles would travel outside that paved bulb.
So
Unless the pump station had some sort of access driveway pulling off there.
So I just think, I guess we can, a detail that can be worked out during the final plan stage here. But I think that we don't typically allow for parking within cul-de-sac areas because it will obstruct emergency service vehicles. And so if there's going to be parking there, you would have to do a bump out of a perpendicular space or a parallel parking space adjacent to it to maintain that turning radius for for any emergency service vehicles.
Yes.
Okay, moving down to phasing, the natatorium, when is that proposed with phasing of that here? You talked about the project being constructed in 3 phases.
Natatorium is currently slated to be constructed in phase 2.
Okay. So you've asked for, or you mentioned earlier in the testimony about plantings, the culvert waiver on Haywood. I do not see that on your waiver request list. Is that something you're adding that was above and beyond that for the waivers here? So you had a
Yes.
waiver request list submitted on dated June 12th, 2026. That one is not listed on here.
Yes, we would be adding that. It's a locational waiver, yes.
Okay. Okay, we're jumping over to the shared parking agreement that was referenced. So you have 2 parking spaces. I'm going to point to exhibit what were we, A12, I think this is still. A12, you have right next to the natatorium area, there's a parking lot here and a parking lot at this location on the north side of that track next to the roundabout. Those are both what you're classifying as open space parking. Let's see what that's tabbed out as. So that's listed as park and open space. I guess are those 2 parking lots that I refer to the total of 166 spaces?
So there are 520 combined spaces here when you're combining the aquatic center parking and parking for this open space. There are 66 spaces, I believe, up here on the northern lot. So down here on the lower end of the site next to the natatorium, there's the 494 required, plus there's 26 additional spots. So we're overparked for the natatorium, and the idea is that overparked area would be to the benefit of people accessing the open space.
So I'm sorry, Rick. The upper parking lot next to the amphitheater, that counts within the 520. I was under the impression the 520 spaces for the natatorium, and then your parking spot tabulation here lists this as 166 on the plan for park and open space. So I was thinking that both this lot and this and the northern lot next to the roundabout were a total of 166.
Yeah, the open space is a combined 66 parking spaces here and 20 spaces here for a total of 86. And then there's 500 at the natatorium.
I'm sorry, Rick. Could you repeat that again for the two the spaces here? Because the plan calls for 166 for park and open space.
Yeah, that should be for open space. That should be 86 spaces. So again, 20 here, 66 here, and then there's 500 spaces for the aquatic center. So 500 for the aquatics, an additional 20, and then 66. So 86 total for open space.
Okay. The tentative PRD plan doesn't agree with those notes in there for that, at least the way I'm reading it here. Okay. Stormwater management. I had done a review comment within my letter here, requesting consideration for an additional 20% of additional capacity. Let me read that here. It wasn't mentioned in the testimony here, and just like to see your guys' consideration of this. So my comment here during my review letter dated July 16th, 2026, on page 12 of 13, comment number 7B, was recommended that the principal stormwater management facility be designed to provide for 100% of the required storage capacity plus an additional 20% reserve capacity to account for sediment accumulation, long-term maintenance considerations, potential changes in watershed conditions. Oh, sorry, I talk fast. So plus an additional 20% reserve capacity to account for sediment accumulation, long-term maintenance considerations, potential changes in watershed considerations, and other uncertainties over the life of the facility. Is that something that the applicant would consider and have you start to incorporate into your stormwater designs?
We will comply with the township ordinance to the extent that we can go beyond that. We can try and take a look at what we can do. But I will say we will comply with this township ordinance.
Okay. Referring to the stormwater management and above ground systems, was I correct that you commented there was meant to be an above ground system north of the amphitheater area?
Yes.
That is not currently shown on the tentative PRD plan submittal.
So stormwater is currently under design. We just received a round of soils testing today. And I think this really speaks to the conceptual nature of the plan you're reviewing tonight. The plan is evolving as we speak.
Okay, because your current PRD plan shows subsurface within the parking lot areas in that.
We are proposing subsurface basins underneath the parking lot for the natatorium, yes.
Okay. Okay, so you commented earlier about the fire marshal's review comments related to fire lane access around the natatorium and the potential relocation of parking. Will that potential change necessitate moving and expanding the parking areas further north from the amphitheater area to further reduce the potential open space in order to accommodate that? The additional fire lane access?
It may, but by nature of turning these parking spaces into fire lanes, that allows us to potentially reshape the building, reshape the parking. We are currently overparked in the natatorium parking lot. So whatever is displaced here could be kind of added to the north of this parking lot near the open space. So yes, it could. I'm not sure how much area we need, but I believe it's marginal.
Okay. Can we talk about trail connectivity off-site? That plan, I believe, so you're proposing sidewalk, you commented and testified to tying in sidewalk to the adjoining shopping center area. But I believe there's an existing sidewalk that leads out towards Route 113 from that driveway. So in reality, you'll be making connectivity out to Route 113 and potentially with the highway improvement projects that you're doing, potentially having to modify the handicap accessibility and traffic signal to accomplish connectivity out to 113. Am I correct that this will this project will make connection out to Route 113?
Yes, it will make connection out to 113. It'll also make a pedestrian trail connection directly to the Tractor Supply lot. So 2 connections to that property over there.
Okay. And 113 intersection, Lionville Station Road intersection has, I think, a pedestrian crossings at the locations, and that will still be maintained through this project. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The open space conservation easement here, am I correct here that there was, and I think you had commented that you weren't sure the exact number, but is it 38 acres that are being proposed to be part of the conservation easement through the agreement with the township? Do you know if that number is correct?
I don't know if I can't verify that number, that acreage. I do know that there's 127.5 total. And depending what you do count and do not count in this central portion of the site as the conservation easement, we'd have to define that area for me to tell you an exact number.
If it's 38 acres, I believe the number would end up rolling into 127 minus the 38 acres would put you at 89 acres of what you would be doing without that conservation easement, which the required PRD common open space would be 88.83. So it's right in that ballpark to answer the supervisor's question here with that conservation easement.
I appreciate. Can I just add one follow-up question to that? There was references to the plan evolving as we speak, and it sounds like the above-ground stormwater infrastructure north of the natatorium parking lot was something that was new to us tonight. And I understand that that is not counted in the open space calculation. So would that calculation then decrease?
Potentially, unless there was a swap of open space of another above ground facility. It sounds like it's an evolving item there, but yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So back to your question about, I'm not sure legally defined if that 38 acres is subtracted from the 127, and that's a definition of open space versus the easement area. I'm not really sure.
I don't think, Rick, I don't think the question is what, I mean, you're providing the 127.5 acres here for this. I think the supervisors were asking if without the buy down of the potential 38 acres, are you meeting your open space requirements? So I think that I was just trying to get, and I'm not sure if that 38 acres is the correct number or not, but I just wanted to kind of get that open to help answer some of that question here that came up from the supervisors.
Okay.
The paved path trail and stormwater considerations, I'm going to ask Rick, from your experience, and I know you've done a lot of trail work here within the Eagle View development for design works, design projects here. Am I correct that sometimes the trails are not managed from a stormwater management perspective, and it's considered a bypass, and they're and over compensated for the upslope stormwater facilities?
That exact designation, I'm not familiar with that wording, but I will say that if we are not providing stormwater for these trails, that we may have to increase a riparian forest buffer to offset that. So that's another technique I am familiar with. We're in conversations with the Conservation District now to define that and see if they're going to allow paved trails in that buffer. The regulations for DEP are changing constantly, and we're trying to stay on top of that.
And these trails, whether they're impervious or pervious material, are meant for pedestrians only. So you don't really have a water quality issue associated with those trails, in the sense that there's no maintenance vehicles utilizing these trails, cars or any kind of potential issues for hotspots or oil droppings from vehicles. Correct?
Correct.
Stormwater management inspections. I'm not sure if you're familiar, section 706 C1B, we will require is per the Township Stormwater Management Ordinance 706 C1B, will require an HOA to have engineers inspections of the post-construction stormwater management facilities in perpetuity. So if you're not familiar with that, I recommend that you review that section, and those notes will be required as part of the final stormwater management plan.
Okay, thank you.
Just going to jump through my letter and see if there's any quick highlighted items that I haven't brought up in that. I'm getting close to wrapping up my stuff. You did not discuss the parking requirements for the natatorium. The current zoning ordinance requires a certain space between, I guess there's a requirement that a 10-foot landscape islands be incorporated with parking areas containing 60 or more spaces in order to, I guess, well, I'll ask why, but I guess this project in the PRD ordinance here is not proposing to do those 10-foot wide landscape islands for parking areas containing 60 or more spaces. That was a modification to your PRD ordinance here from what the current ordinance is. And I believe that discussion was related to try to minimize the parking lot areas and try to maximize the open space. Is that correct?
That's correct. The PRD ordinance doesn't require that 10-foot wide landscape islands.
I think we've talked about it earlier about the amphitheater. You'll work with the township through the final PRD process if it moves forward to determine the ownership and operation of the amphitheater area here with the township.
Yes.
I'm almost done here. Management. Phasing here, you'll, as part of the phasing plan, will you ensure that the phasing plan is clearly identifies the timing of the offsite improvements as required here by the township traffic reviews and the PennDOT for when those are being implemented during construction here?
Yeah, the final plan will more clearly define some of those off-site improvements and when they're implemented with phasing, yes.
And that includes for the phasing aspect of it here with the recreation facilities of when there'll be key triggers of when the community area gets built for the community center and the amphitheater areas. They'll be clearly defined in triggers for when those are required to be done, so they're not loaded at the end of the phases where these units are occupied and they don't have those amenities.
The amenity space is already in phase one. I believe that's a contractual requirement. And yes, we will hone in on the amphitheater and when that, what triggers that improvement as well. Yes, in the final plan, we will do that.
The community recreation area on the north side of the track, that's private, correct? That's just for the community users. It's not for the public, correct?
Yes, private.
Okay, I think those are the key items from my comments.
Do we want to go with traffic next from Mr. Traffic? Okay, so Mr. Koshat? I'm sorry.
Present traffic testimony, so you may want to hold off.
Is there
Part of our letter is review of the PRD plans. So
That's-
we just have a few comments on
Okay.
that. And then
Fine.
I'll just hold off on the traffic.
Yeah, this is
till
just
after.
dealing with what was
Yeah.
testified to. With
Yes.
respect to
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Name is Matthew, Matthew, Kosuch, Kozsuch. Bowman Consulting, Bowman, Township Traffic Engineer. One comment in our letter, comment 12, we have concerns about the parking still. Ricky had mentioned being overparked around the natatorium. I think if that's maybe based off of the township ordinance requirement of the 150 or a spot per 150 square feet of might be a little overparked, but we still have some concerns on the special events that Phil Aquatics presented. They gave several numbers of, they have their maximum capacity events, which there would be the transportation management plan submitted, but we would like to see some additional analysis provided based on the medium size and smaller events for the parking. Some concern over overlap of when different events are happening. People will show up for the first round of events and then people will show up for the second round of events, and will there be overlap? Will there be, there's according to the Phil Aquatics presentation, seating for 1,000 spectators plus 800 participants. I guess that's for the maximum capacities, but for the medium-sized events, I forget the number, 700 and 400, something like that. They have a load analysis. I know we've talked about that with Eric and the traffic, but I'm still not comfortable that the parking is there for those larger, medium, occasional events that are beyond the everyday use that the spot per 150 square feet addresses. So we just want to double check that and make sure that this parking is going to be sufficient for those larger events that are, I forget how many times a year those were. The maximum ones were 4 times a year. The others were like 7 or 8, 9, something like that. So that was a comment that's in our comment number 12. Well, the second part of that does apply to the to the TIS, the traffic impact study. So I'll hold off on that. We second the comment that Dan made about the parking in the cul-de-sac. That is, I think it's section 502.10. That just does not allow parking in the cul-de-sac. So we'd like to see if there's a little driveway or something that can be made for the maintenance of the pump station. That'd be great, but would prefer not to see parking in the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, there's 9 off-street parking spaces on that street leading up to the cul-de-sac. We're confident that that's ample parking for that area.
Okay, yeah, and given Supervisor Miller's earlier comments about the entire development possibly being overparked, I'm sure a few spots in the back of the cul-de-sac could probably go away.
Yes.
And let's double check. I believe the rest of our comments were related to the traffic impact study in terms of any key comments that I wanted to bring up or that Lou didn't already go over. No, that's all I have.
Mr. Thurkoff?
Yes, thank you. Edward A. Thurkoff, Theurkauf. I'm the township's landscaping and planning consultant. Mr. Stratton talked about some of the design requirements on the plan and indicated that they are that they can and will be rectified on the final plan. So I'm satisfied in those regards. But I do have some recommendations with regard to the draft ordinance, and that's for 2 reasons. One is that so that this applicant or any future applicant who may take on part or all of this project would be held to rigorous standards. And the second reason is this is in the interest of not delegitimizing the township standards that apply elsewhere. So take these recommendations in that spirit. Regarding woodland removal, I'm recommending that the PRD ordinance be revised to allow any proposed tree on the site to count towards remediation, but to also include standards for the sizes of the various plantings, and that's spelled out in my letter. With regard to perimeter setbacks, the ordinance talks about residential development being set back 50 feet from other areas of the tract perimeter, which would include like the turnpike, for example. I think it should be clarified that that refers to the residential property line setback. The plan does comply in that regard, but I think the ordinance should be tightened up so we don't see a plan change in the future that would provide less than that 50 feet. Similarly, for above ground stormwater basins, where they are adjacent to an existing residential use on the property perimeter, I think that setback should be 50 feet and with evergreen screening. And that way somebody who's lived there and looked at a farm or woods or whatever for so many years is not suddenly looking at an outfall structure for a basin. Regarding parking lot landscaping, the ordinance calls for a blanket relief from the township's landscaping standards, seemingly to allow flexibility to apply the required plantings as the applicant deems feasible. In looking at the plan that's been proposed, I think they largely comply, so I would recommend deleting that proposed exemption from the ordinance. As regards trails, I'm going to reassert my recommendation that they be asphalt trails for a couple reasons. One is for ADA accessibility. The second is because what's the word I want? Well, trails that are made of granular or unconsolidated media are prone to erosion. And this, as you know, is not a flat site. So I think a paved surface is the way to go. There are pervious asphalt treatments. They're rather expensive to install, and I think there's better alternatives with earthen berms and the proposed meadow and woodland buffer plantings, I think, can be used to mitigate any stormwater impacts from a paved trail. As regards width, between the township and the applicant, it has to be decided what the users of the trails will be. If they're pedestrian only, I think for a development of this scale, a 6-foot minimum width is appropriate. If bicycle use would be accommodated, you would need this to go to 8 feet minimum. So that will have to be worked out on the final plan. And then one thing that came up in testimony, there was an excellent question about where rear lot lines abut the open space. How do we stop mission creep on the part of landowners and eventually moving, you know, their maintenance and activities on their private yards into the open space? I think a delineation is in order. It doesn't have to be a fence. One of the things that other developers use is they'll periodically put a stake that says open space. So you can look down the back row of lots and you'd see where the private domain ends and where the quasi-public domain of the open space begins. And those are my main comments.
Okay, Mr. Holmes, Fire Marshal.
It's Mike Holmes, Holmes. I just wanted to go back to your testimony regarding the natatorium for the, I know you talked about the access, moving some of those parking spots there. I still have concern, and it was kind of spelled out in my review letter, regarding access to the entire perimeter of the building.
Yeah.
I don't know how that was, are you looking at addressing that then?
Yeah, we can explore an emergency access fire lane to the rear of the building so that you have access to all facades.
Okay, and I know one thing we got to make sure when that gets put on the plan that it has to be maintained in the wintertime and all that as well. It has to be snow plowed and free of any kind of debris.
Yes.
Okay. The one other thing I just wanted to touch on, I know with the templates, and you mentioned that fire trucks can wheel around, really not the greatest vehicles to wheel around in parking lots. We do have concerns with the templates work out fine when the parking lot's empty. Is there a way to do that study kind of like with vehicles in parking spots? Because you know you got a pickup truck that's a 4-door pickup truck with an 8-foot bed. It's hanging out in the into the parking spot, and when people don't pull up all the way, it gives us some challenges in getting into spaces.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Our template study ensures that the chassis of the vehicle and the tire tracks of the vehicle and the bumpers and everything has no conflicts with any areas within parking spaces. If a vehicle is overhanging a space, I can't say that we can do much about that, but we can ensure that the fire apparatus can make movements in the drive aisles with no conflicts with parked vehicles inside parked spaces.
Okay. And the natatorium will, I know we discussed, or you discussed earlier about the fire lane signage. Would that be maintained by the homeowners association, or is that is the natatorium their own entity?
It'd be the natatorium to maintain that signage and
And that's
striping.
like those signs would be put on the plan.
In the final plan, yes.
That we
yes.
would get. Okay. That's all I had for right now in regards to what we were just.
And then we have folks from French and Pickering.
Bill Gladden, Bill Gladden, Gladden, Executive Director, French and Pickering Creeks Conservation Trust. We've been hearing tonight that we're still trying to nail down between the tentative and the final exactly the delineations of the easement area from the common. And I would just suggest that even though the ownership is going to be similar and an HOA is going to own both the eased and the uneased portion of that the eased area be delineated and made its own tax parcel similar to the natatorium. I also wanted to sort of follow up on the chairs and Mr. Thurkoff's comments about just delineating mostly on the eastern side of the property where those backyards start and stop and the HOA area begins. Throughout the discussions of various evenings, et cetera, the EAC as well as French and Pickering have suggested that to the greatest extent possible that those HOA areas be populated with native plant species. And I would just suggest that, doing that and having that established and then having what I would assume would be your traditional cool season grasses that you would mow as the backyards, that would also help to create a visual barrier that could be helpful in that regard. And I was just interested in hearing if that was something that you plan to incorporate into the final plan.
Yes. Yeah, we can certainly do that. Good suggestions.
And in terms of establishing the unique habitats in the easement area, earlier in the evening when there was discussion about doing things in parallel, which is a great idea, predominantly with the sewer and how it would take roughly 3 years and things, you're envisioning that they'll all come together at roughly the same time. I would suggest that given the 3 to 5 year sort of baseline need to establish a meadow like we're speaking of, that be done in that same time period before it's turned over to an HOA to ensure that the people with the expertise to know how to get it established and really up and running be engaged in the process for a sufficient length of time.
Yes. Yeah. Good idea. Thank you.
And then sort of following along with that, in our letter that we submitted dated July 16th, we mentioned the need for a couple of agreements. And the one that would relate to this specific topic was to have a conservation area improvement, maintenance, and easement agreement in place. And as we've discussed, it can be a challenge working with HOAs. And I think it would be in everyone's best interest to have those responsibilities clarified before it was turned over to an HOA.
Yes, we agree to that.
And then totally understanding that between the tentative and the final, there's going to be a lot of pencil sharpening and details, because why do that now before you invest the time and money before you know it's approved? But during that time period, would you commit to also working and coming up with a mutually agreeable stewardship funding agreement that the HOA would inherit to ensure that there were sufficient funds, given that, as we sit here now, without those final designs, we can't really estimate what it would cost. But during that fine tuning process, it would seem reasonable to expect that to be one of the outcomes.
Yes, we're okay with, we're comfortable with that.
What else does it have? Oh, if the supervisors were to determine it's in the township's best interests, would you be amenable to recording a deed of open space and a deed of public trust on
all of the land, including the easement and the HOA area.
I would have to see what that looks like. I can't imagine there would be an objection to it. I don't know.
Yeah, the purpose is just basically to kind of avoid an Upper Pottsgrove kind of situation or any confusion even in future generations or iterations as to whether this was just this HOA designation of open space as something that can be, messed with in the future, or if it was just, informal, et cetera. Really, it would put it in the deed so that it would be clear and people aren't having to look through map notes or anything of that nature.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
it's usually in the declaration, but if I can't see, I mean, I have to think about it, but nothing's jumping up at me as to why you couldn't record it in a deed.
Yeah.
Conveyance of the open space to the HOA, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, I did have one question, if I can ask a question of one of the comments that was made earlier, just because I'd never heard it before. And that was setting up the open space area or the conservation eased area as a separate tax parcel. I'm not pro against it. I'm not sure that the county, and maybe you have more experience with this than I do, I'm not sure that they would assign a separate tax parcel number to the open space. I just don't know whether they would do that or not. And I'm not sure what the purpose of it is.
The purpose would be to clearly delineate that area because it is going to have a higher performance standards than just the regular maintenance of the HOA. So it's going to just.
Right, I get that, but I think you can do that either through your deed of conveyance or through your HOA documents. It's assigning it a separate tax parcel number where it's not going to be a taxable entity anyway. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not for it, against it. I'm just not sure what Chester County thinks about that. We'll find out together, I guess.
That's fair. And then in terms of turning it over to the HOA as a part, and this sort of, I think you've already agreed to this, but just to be explicit about it, including in that agreement, the maintenance agreement, having it based on performance standards, because you have to have, it's going to be evident as time goes on and probably even extend beyond the 3 years, but hopefully it will be firmly established. But since we're not going to know until we get there and the plans have to be approved before that time would come to pass, having a performance standard in that agreement, I think would be very beneficial to the townships to make sure that they're getting their money's worth.
Totally agree.
Those are all the questions that I had at this time. I'd like to pass it to my colleague, Carl Resick. Do you have any additional ones? Oh, okay. That wraps ours up for now.
Are there any other professionals that? No. How about township staff? Any comments, questions?
Just a couple of questions. One, and I apologize if I missed this. There's been a lot of information tonight. In the waiver requests dated June 12th, 2026, I don't recall seeing a waiver request for section 511.18 B as in Bravo relating to the 60% exceedance of the total number of residential types. And it may have been covered elsewhere, but I'm just confirming on the record that you're adding that to the waiver requests this evening?
Yes.
Thank you. You got something?
No, I was going to say, I think to make life easier for everybody, at the next hearing, the commencement of the next hearing, we're going to hand up just a very specific list of all the waiver requests because some were with the initial filing and then some got deleted and some got added, but I'm trying to keep track of them myself here. So when we start the next hearing, we'll just hand up a listing.
Sorry about my little Murphy's Law moment. As soon as you pass on the mic, you think of the additional question. It has to deal with the easement area and compaction, and how you could take steps to minimize or prohibit that site from being excessively compacted during the construction process.
Yeah, we will limit disturbance on any open space areas, any unnecessary construction activity, whether it be staging, when we're installing infrastructure, if we have to install infrastructure. we will limit that to the furthest extent possible. Yes.
I think something like similar to like flagging or some kind of markings in the field so that the folks know, where those lines are. So they don't accidentally just take the shortest path between point A and point B and go across it, that they be sort of directed purposefully in avoidance of that.
Yeah, we typically put orange construction fencing, but we can go a step further if that's not effective. But yes.
Yep,
yes.
Thank you.
I'm back. Just a few more questions. I know you indicated that the fire truck turning templates had been done, but school buses hadn't been assessed. Had trash truck turning templates been assessed in the development?
Not yet, but we can and will.
Okay, thank you. Not a traffic professional. I know how to drive. That's about the extent of it. Just a comment, the alignment of road 11 and 17 there at the kind of the northern end of the natatorium that aligns with the site there. I'm just envisioning what happens when you come to a two-way stop on that road and everybody is fighting and confused as to whose turn it is. So non-traffic professional, just maybe take a look at, maybe that's a four-way stop or something else there.
Yes, we'll take a look.
And then my final questions are relating to a comment that Mr. Lingo made regarding density. And I just wanted to explore some questions to clarify on the record some of those conversations. I think it's fair to say, and I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, Mr. Lingo, but I think in all of our conversations with township staff over the almost 2 years now that we've been talking about this project, I think it's fair to say that density has been a primary concern of township staff. Would you agree with that?
Very much so.
And a lot of those discussions included things like that you spoke about Thursday night, removing the affordable housing component, shifting density elsewhere on the property, the township buying down density through the purchase of the conservation easement. And through all of that, we eventually got to what went to the Planning Commission of 581 homes. And I believe, again, if you would just confirm for me, at that time, you advised the township staff that additional meaningful reductions were not feasible. Is that correct?
From that planning commission to where we are today, to go beyond that we would not have been able to do.
Right, but I believe before it got to the Planning Commission, when we were at 581 homes, township staff again continued to press on reductions on density, and you told us that you weren't able to do additional reductions, which is what had the 581 homes go to the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
Yeah, at the time, we started at 700 or so, and we've continually worked our way down. So there's been some give and take with the design. We also talked about, after the Planning Commission meeting, what are some things that don't cost the township money, but could be helpful to helping reduce density. One of them was the change in the product mix. One of them was the township potentially supporting a neighborhood improvement district here where we could get bond funding to support some of the infrastructure expenses. And that's something that doesn't cost the township anything, but it is something that would benefit the project. So with those changes that we talked about, and also allowing 50 homes to be connected with EDOs earlier on in the project, that all enabled us to get down to where we are today, in conjunction with other things. But yeah, we've heard loud and clear the concerns not only of township staff but also of the public with regard to density, with regard to traffic, and other things.
Okay. And again, I just want to clarify. At no point in those discussions after the Planning Commission, I after the planning commission recommendation of no more than 400 homes, 400 units, did township staff give a number in terms of like, this is the number that you need to achieve?
Correct. Yeah, that wasn't the case.
Okay. And then my final clarifying question, and, you know, I just want to make sure, for the record, my understanding of kind of our township staff's involvement in the land development review process, which is consistent with kind of how we do all land development reviews, is, you know, reviewing the plans, providing feedback, reviewing those revisions as they're submitted, and kind of advising the applicant when in the staff's judgment, any ordinance amendments or application materials were sufficiently developed to proceed to kind of the next stage of the public review process, such as going in front of the planning commission or the board for a hearing, and kind of at all times throughout the process, you know, you as the applicant were free to accept those recommendations, reject them, modify them, and, you know, kind of determine the direction of your application at all times.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so unless the board has any follow-up, I'd like to go to public questions.
I have one really brief follow-up question. Regarding the turn radius in the natatorium parking lot, do any of the parking spots reflect bus parking? Do you anticipate any bus traffic for events?
Yeah, good question. A facility like this can expect some buses. There are no designated bus parking areas here. We can certainly take a look at that, and considering many of the users of this aquatic center would be arriving on a bus, perhaps some of the regular parking spaces could be converted to bus parking.
Okay. And is that the same scenario for the off-site parking arrangement regarding shuttles? Is there any shuttle circulation or staging areas built into the parking design?
Not yet, but we can take a look at those.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, Mr. Ampe?
Thank you. So you're asking to remove 30% of the wooded areas. Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. Yes, you're asking to remove 30% of the wooded areas, 5% over the allowed maximum. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then testimony just now, how many sections of woods are affected? Was it 2?
There's numerous, I don't know the exact number of wooded areas. It's probably more than 4.
Okay.
Probably somewhere around 6 or 8 different wooded areas.
Okay. Is there a document that shows before and after of the woods and actually shows the math of how it arrives at 30%? Because I'm sorry, I downloaded the whole zip file. I couldn't find it.
So there, on the existing conditions plan in the tentative PRD set, we do show a hatched area of existing woods to be removed. On the screen, it might show up kind of a gray area, and that's how we calculated the percent removal. It is, I will agree, it's hard to see on this exhibit on the screen now.
Okay.
But we can provide a clear PDF that you can look at and see.
Okay, thank you. Because it just appeared that, you showed the 2 at the top, but halfway down the eastern border, there is that other section of, it looks like maybe 10, 12 acres that is almost a perfect rectangle. That comes all the way out to the 3rd row of housing, and that all will be ripped out as well. So I just want to make sure we're accounting for everything. And I also just a statement, I don't think it's necessary for the township to allow more than 25% of the woods to be taken out. Up at the upper right-hand corner, just below my property, just below at the cul-de-sac there. And Greg, I appreciate you coming out, meeting with Greg and me and look, walk in the spot and everything, I just don't see why it's necessary to take out that large section of woods there, right to the east of the cul-de-sac for storm water management. I believe it's required to provide multiple different alternatives to taking out woods, and I would really like to see an alternative to this. I think
So
that's pretty
the,
much it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, at the end of the cul-de-sac there, essentially the stormwater management at the end of the cul-de-sac is essentially to manage the stormwater from the cul-de-sac there. So to the south, we have steep slopes, and in a previous iteration prior to meeting with you and your neighbors, we had the stormwater management up kind of against your property line. So we brought that down and then also brought it under the cul-de-sac to minimize the tree disturbance. And then we also increased the setback from back of our property line to, we increased it another 25 feet from the back of the property line to your property line, just to kind of give additional buffer there.
Can any of that be offset by more underwater, underground, stones, beds, that could possibly be, instead of a big, large area cut out of the woods?
So the stormwater designed at the end of that cul-de-sac will be an underground system. And it does need to be of a certain size so that we can meet all of our design requirements. And unfortunately, it's not a great idea to plant trees on top of underground stormwater. Those roots tend to seek out water underground, and it would rip apart the design system.
So from the end of that cul-de-sac to the pipeline, essentially where you're cutting out, that appears to be about 175 feet. Would that be correct?
That looks about correct. I would agree.
And you need that whole 175 feet for that?
We do.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Widener? Okay, Mr. Engel?
You asked a lot of my questions, Ken. I too am also interested in an overlay of where the trees that are going to be removed with the plan. To the best of my understanding, looking at Chesco views, it looks like all the houses that are on either side of Haywood Drive, that kind of all represents where you're going to be removing a majority of the trees, as well as the other section that's to the east. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Okay, and when you do the 30% reduction in woodlands, can you explain again? I didn't quite follow. There are things that you do to put trees back to mitigate some of the woodland loss, and can you explain that a little more clearly as to what kinds of trees and where those trees will go?
So the final selection of the species and the location of where those replacement trees will go are not represented on the tentative plan. They will be represented on the final plan. To go back to your first question, what the PRD ordinance does outline is when we go over that 25% threshold of woodlands removal, between 25% and 30%, there's a certain amount of trees that we're going to remove in that 5%. And there will be some sort of an accounting of how many trees we're taking down between 25 and 30%, and a calculation of replacements will be done on, I'm assuming it will be based on the number of trees, the size of those trees, the value of those trees, and a replacement value acceptable to township staff will be put back elsewhere in the development.
So replacement doesn't necessarily mean we're going to just put an evergreen here. It could be something more robust in nature, given that those woods have more robust trees than just evergreens.
It could be, yes.
As far as traffic is concerned, Lionville Station Road, the piece that goes off of the property down to Byers Road, thank you. Has a weight limit on industrial traffic, which nobody seems to pay attention to. Is there in your plan something that you may or may not do that will dissuade large trucks from using that as a cross traverse way?
Yeah, I think the transition from the wider roundabout lane back to existing hopefully would dissuade a truck, but I think we're open to putting up additional signage on our property as much as we can to dissuade that, yes.
Okay. And you talked about something, you said stormwater treatment. That's not a plant. That's like the stuff that's underground that naturally treats the stormwater that's going to run into whatever that.
We can treat stormwater with natural things and man-made things, and this plan will have a combination of all those techniques.
And that'll be below ground unless it's the few stormwater basins that are above ground.
The below ground systems will likely be pipe and stone underground that helps store all the volume of stormwater and lets it soak into the ground naturally. The above ground systems do have more natural elements, certain mulches and soils that are more absorbent, certain plants that will, through evapotranspiration, will help treat that stormwater. And so the above ground systems will have more natural features.
Okay. And the stormwater then, if I heard you correctly, just naturally soaks into the ground.
Yes,
there's a discharge pipe or something that goes.
There is discharge for larger storms, but we are doing soils testing to study at how well that the virgin soils underneath absorb
Where do you
stormwater.
imagine those larger discharge outlets to be in your plan?
They tend to be closer to water bodies. So probably near the riparian buffer, near the wetlands, tend to be where we discharge stormwater, as not to create a problem for any particular lot owners.
Do you anticipate with your plan in an attempt to elevate beyond the existing stormwater that currently happens on the property, that when there's a torrent rain, that creek head that gets flooded and then it passes over Byers Road and everything, will your plan reduce that problem downstream?
The township stormwater ordinance, requires that we don't make it worse. I would say for the smaller storms, you'll see quite an improvement. For the larger storms, it shouldn't be any worse, but there might be a slight improvement on the larger storms too.
Okay. And finally, how do you test if it's working? From a purity, from a treatment standpoint.
So as the township engineer mentioned, the HOA is going to be required to inspect these. And if they're not working, the HOA will be required to fix them until they are.
And is that an annual inspection or every few years? Like, how do you envision that working? And will you put that as a requirement into the HOA documentation that they are required to do this testing?
The inspection frequency will be listed on the recorded plan. There's also a stormwater O&M agreement, which speaks to that. And then it becomes sort of the township's job to enforce that to some degree, but the HOA will self-monitor and self-perform any maintenance required.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Matthews?
In an over 55 community, the people will probably be relying on Chesco Connect and Uber services and drivers. will they be able to park on the street, enabling these participants to come out and get into these vehicles? Or will there be enough space for the other cars to get around them? This would also involve Amazon trucks making deliveries. Are the roads wide enough to handle all those things?
Yes, they are. There are on-street parking areas, and the cartway widths do allow for a vehicle to pull over and others to move around it.
You mentioned increasing parking spots on this plan. What was changed from the previous plan to accommodate these additional parking spots?
The
The original plan had no additional parking spots. It was only the 4 per household.
Yes,
You now say there's additional ones.
the township staff expressed concern about guests and times when people are hosting events at their homes. And so to accommodate that, we provided some on-street parking and some parallel parking, and we spread it out all over the site so that it wasn't just concentrated in one particular area of the development. So the current plan does have some off-street parking and parallel parking. The first version did not have that, and subsequent versions began to incorporate it. And the number of off-street parking has fluctuated as the plan has developed until where it is today.
So what did you get rid of to allow for this?
We reorganized the site and realigned the roads, and we lost units. Residential density was decreased to accommodate this too.
Okay, thank you. How is stormwater runoff at the area behind the shopping center where it meets Milky Way Farm being handled and improved? Originally, there was to be a storm management spot there.
We will design stormwater management in this area to treat runoff from the new roads, from the residential lots, and there are facilities proposed in this corner of the site so that runoff leaving the site after development will be an improvement over conditions today.
If the trails are impervious, will they need to be plowed or shoveled in the winter? And is each homeowner responsible to remove the snow from the sidewalk at their property?
HOA will be responsible for snow removal on sidewalks. We haven't outlined snow removal on trails. We haven't really given much thought to that yet, but thank you for the comment. We'll take it into consideration.
The trail in the 300-foot buffer on the eastern side of the property is impervious. I assume you're planning to handle runoff from that trail as you spoke before about plantings.
Yes, and I think we can pitch the trail grading wise to direct that runoff back onto this site instead of towards the east, towards the farm. Yes.
Is the 300 buffer considered open space? The 300-foot buffer?
Most of it is. Some of that 300-foot buffer does include roadway, but there are no lots. There are no residential lots within that 300-foot buffer. There is a little bit of roadway, and I will point to the plan now. The 300-foot measurement is from the shared property line to the closest residential lots. So some of this roadway and some of the parking there does fall within that buffer.
Thank you. Ms. Dwyer? Not here. Mr. Siegel? Ms. Siegel? Mr. Martin?
Dennis Martin. First question, keep talking about underground stormwater. There's like 30, 40 some of them. Where are they located?
All throughout the site. Some are located in in this area on the east and the southeast corner of the site. Some are located underneath parking lots for the natatorium, and some are underneath parking areas for the amenity space. And then some are kind of in between the back of the residential lots and the stream, and some are in these interior open areas in between lots. We've spread them out as best we could, and we have to, it's ideal to capture and manage that stormwater as close to the source as possible so that we're not conveying it long distances to be treated elsewhere.
Okay, just curious how all that works. Another question, how wide will Lionville Station Road be when you're done? Is it gonna be still just 2 lanes, 4 lanes?
2 lanes. The cartway width,
I mean, it's 2 lanes now. So
Yeah.
what are we doing to improve it if it's,
the cartway will be widened with this project. And if you allow me to check my notes here, I can tell you the distance or the width. Lionville Station Road will be widened to a 38-foot wide cartway. Currently, I think in some areas it might only be 18 at the moment to 20.
okay? All right, well, really, yeah. Then the other question is, we're talking parallel parking and off-street parking. They're intermittently through the whole development. I don't quite get that either. I mean, how can you show us where off-street or parallel parking is the way you have it designed? And how wide are those roads? You're saying they're big enough for emergency vehicles plus people to be parked on them, plus traffic.
Yeah. So when I say all throughout the site, that there is a plan which depicts every single proposed off-street parking space with a symbol. They're hard to see on these plans, I would agree.
Okay.
But yes, there is room for the off-street parking and safe passage of vehicles on the street.
Okay. All right, well, that'll do it for now. This has nothing to do with overall traffic. This is just this spot because we still have traffic going Lionville Station, Haywood, and down Lionville's both ways, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That'll be covered probably Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
So we're creeping up on 10 o'clock, so I think we're gonna break here. And, cause so we're not, and, we'll pick up on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And we'll continue with the public questions, and then you'll have a chance to